Out of the gates and ready to go. HotMic with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Tuesday edition. We are inching closer to the official week one of college football, 2 days away. A lot headed your way in that regard for the kickoff on Thursday nights, headed into Saturday. And big show planned. We're not forgetting about Major League Baseball. Michael McKenry will join us coming up in 20 minutes, the very latest on the playoff push for several clubs. Plus, what's it like being on a loser right now? As you're just kind of coasting through, you can play spoiler. That's about it. The Fort joins us coming up in 20. John McClain, who's covered the NFL for 5 decades, will be with us coming up in hour number 2. NFL cutdown deadline in an hour from right now. John will have the latest there on all the moves and notes. Plus, Matt Zenitz. He is the national college football writer, 4 on 3. He will be with us in hour number 3. Chad, good afternoon.
Hutton, we are 2 days away from the kickoff of college football. I know week 0 happened, but let's face it, week 1 is where the action lies. The action starts in 2 days. This is a Tuesday. We're going to double everything up today. We're going to double up the enthusiasm for football season. We're going to double up social media posts. We're going to double up great guests. We're going to double up our takes, opinions, everything. I'm on 2 times speed today. That's my promise. I want the chat to get fired up right now. Everyone, all of our producers in here right now, everyone, I know they all have different titles. I'm not going to go through all the different titles. They're all producers. They all produce great content. They're all doing good work. We are doubling up every single thing on today's show, Hutton, starting right now.
Well, we've got the headlines today, and we head all over the place. We start in the outfield. Chad, you're watching live last night as Ronald Acuna.
Speaking of doubling up,
2
fans, not one, 2 fans.
Tackled and taken down in the outfield at Coors Field last night. What did you see in real time compared to the highlight we're watching now, which is the one I've seen, where Acuna is bear hugged by one fan and then taken out at the knees by the other as he trips over and falls down. Craziness.
It was the strangest thing because, as you know, on television broadcasts, they tend to not show you when someone runs onto the field. Why? Because they think that produces more people that are going to want to get the attention of running onto a field.
Entices that.
The Bally's cameras showed nothing. It was getting ready for the bottom of the 7th inning. Braves leading 9-4. A.J. Minter, the lefty, comes out of the pen. He's warming up, and like every television crew in America for Major League Baseball, they're showing the close-up of the pitcher with his final warm-up tosses with the stat line below it. And as he throws his final warm-up toss, A.J. Minter just turns towards right field to get the ball back because they're throwing it around the infield. And you could see him quizzically look towards right field and just start to walk towards right field in a manner that something was amiss, something was wrong. And that's when the broadcast team started pointing out that fans have run onto the field and they have done something. They've accosted Ronald Acuna Jr. in some way. Peter Moylan, who was an Aussie, former pitcher, a great accent for baseball, which you don't normally expect a foreign accent with baseball, especially Australian. That's Peter Moylan. He was going crazy on it. He said, this is just unacceptable that 2 fans could go that far before anyone saw them and got to them. The one guy is bear hugging Ronald Acuna. It was crazy. So I had to go to social media. I immediately texted you guys on the group text about what had happened. But I had to go to social media to see what actually took place because the angles we saw were from cameras in the phones in the crowd of people getting what was happening. Ronald Acuna Jr. said he never felt threatened, said both guys were trying to get a selfie with him. But crisis averted because we've seen some crazy stuff happen. First thing that comes to mind to me is Monica Seles. If you don't know that story, Google that one back in the day. When you have a fan sprinting towards someone in the field or play of competition. Crazy night for Ronald Acuna Jr. Had some good moments also, but I'm just happy nothing weird took place when that went down.
Well, this is why I'm all for, like we saw it on Sunday night or Monday Night Football 1 in Los Angeles, where one of the linebackers takes out one of the fans that's running on the field protesting, I believe, but nonetheless, you go into their area. I'm all for guys getting taken out. You run onto the field, you're getting tackled, right? Normally by security, but in the case of what was going on Monday night, was one of the padded linebackers. They don't pay these security guys enough. A lot of them are doing it for a wage that then goes to a charity that they're working on behalf of. And if they're not doing that, they're getting the hourly wage, and they're doing it on behalf of the company they're working for as a second or third job, and they're doing that at night. 2 security officers were on this, and then a third came in. Chad, there's no way that everyone complaining about the security aspect of this, if fans want on the field, you can get on the field pretty easily. It's really not that hard to just start taking off and have people chasing you. But there has to be recourse of knowing what happens to these people after they're taken off the field. I'm assuming they go to jail, don't know, detained in some way, but that's the assumption. I would hope the deterrent is more than just seeing them being taken out, in what is a manner of, like, you think they're being escorted out and headed to a holding cell,
Yeah,
but who knows?
They
honestly.
were detained. Peter Moylan had the funniest line in the Braves broadcast, said, someone handcuffed this guy, because it took 3 guys to bring down the one guy who came sprinting after Ronald Acuna Jr. My first assumption was drugs. When I saw the second guy sprinting, the first guy just seemed a little loopy and was giving him a hug. The second guy in the dead sprint, that they were having a hard time getting away from the field. We see a photo of it right now when they had 3 people go. I thought he was either on meth or some sort of hallucinogenic, like acid, and just ran on the field and thought something crazy was taking place. That's the way he was behaving. That was the only time I got really nervous, was seeing that part of it when the second guy came running after.
And that's the way
Acuna.
you have to treat them, even if you don't know. And I mean, just being on NFL sidelines, these guys don't have handcuffs on them. It's not like they walk around with security and they've got, they're ready to go for any altercation. They're there just to keep the peace until
they don't have tasers or anything
show
either.
up. Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of these people have 9 to 5 gigs, and then they're there just as a deterrent. They're there for optics more than anything.
Yeah, I think we know some people who work in security also, and look, it's just like anything else. There's good and there's bad. We get in this discussion a lot with referees, officials, umpires. Hey, they're there not making much money. Let's be happy someone's willing to do it and not get caught up in the minutia of it if there's a bad call here or there. And mostly I agree with those things. I think with security guards, my assumption is always these guys and girls want the action. Like, they're doing this job because they want to take someone out if someone gets on their field or does something. So it's always surprising when they're slow to react. Sometimes they get criticized for being too fast to react and being too forceful getting people ground. I'm with you, Hutton. I don't care how forceful they are getting someone to the ground if they go onto the field. That's just part of it. That's the price you pay. So I'm not going to sit here and rail on Rocky security that's making minimum wage. I think the misconception from a lot of people that see something like this is these are Secret Service agents that protect these fields, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, if you want the action,
that's not reality.
You're a bouncer at a bar if you want the action.
Those guys like to fight.
1, 2 a.m. Yeah,
those guys. Like
that's
to
where
fight
you're
drunk
looking
people.
to let out some aggression. Not at a ballpark in the middle of the 7th inning of a Major League Baseball game.
What
was the score? 9 to what?
It was 9-4 at the time. The final was 14-4. Some of those guys, though, they want to show off that form tackle one more time.
Every now and then.
Relive their high school glory. Just show they can still do it.
Chad, Jonathan Gannon may give Nathaniel Hackett a run for his money this year. Now the new head coach in Arizona, who has admitted they had Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy has been the number 1 QB. QB1 all offseason, OTAs, minicamp, all the way through camp. And the new head coach, Jonathan Gannon, at a presser, says, hey, we've released Colt McCoy because we saw the entire body of work and we feel like, we have better options. Paraphrasing. But one of those better options is Joshua Dobbs, who's been the backup QB in Cleveland on a second stint there. In his first stint in Cleveland, the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach now in Arizona were coaching him there. He now enters and is in the running to be the starting quarterback week 1 against Washington. Jonathan Gannon is saying he's not going to name a starter, even though they're going to continue to evaluate both Dobbs and Clayton Tune as they get ready for week 1 over the next couple of weeks. Quote, I'm not going to name a starter. Chad, this is this is them naming a starter for 2024, is it not? They're at least trying to name a starter in 2024 because they have released Colt McCoy, who by all accounts is the best option, even though the reports were that coaches were really looking at Clayton Tune, who was taking all of the second-team reps. But it was clear who the QB1 was until he wasn't, Colt McCoy. And now it could be Joshua Dobbs, reminiscent of last year, who on 4 days' notice came in and made his first start for the Titans over their backup option, Malik Willis.
So remember when Brian Flores accused Stephen Ross of trying to get him to tank a season and said that's why he was fired, because he did not fall in line with trying to lose games
for like $100,000 or something.
Yeah, trying to pay him off and give him, some sort of benefit to tanking. That's part of the reason he lost his job, was because he would not. Jonathan Gannon cannot be Nathaniel Hackett this year for this reason. I think he's doing his job. His job is to lose. They're tanking.
Well,
that organization wants the number 1 and number 2 overall pick. I mean, I don't know any other way around it when you see what they've done and how they're trying to completely reset that organization. I don't think they traded for Josh Dobbs because they think Josh Dobbs is the missing link to get them into the playoffs. Nathaniel Hackett was hired after they gave up a ton to bring in Russell Wilson to make sure that they were going to be a team that could contend for a Super Bowl. And he burned the whole thing to the ground and did a terrible job. And Russell Wilson helped him do that because he was awful a year ago as well. This is a completely different situation. This is one where the Cardinals, I'm shocked by the shock that the Cardinals are tanking. When you see the situation, they cut Colt McCoy. What are they doing? Josh Dobbs and Clayton Tune, they're trying to get the number 1 and number 2 overall pick. I think it's pretty obvious what they're doing.
Well,
they don't want to win.
He's pointing to competitive advantage for why he's not going to name a starter. The interesting timetable will be with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray starts the season on the physically unable to perform list. He's coming off of the ACL injury. The timetable for him should be around mid-October to the end of the month, based on just how things will work out. Right now, he won't be eligible to return until the end of September, early October. Then he will have 21 days once he's activated to play, or he goes back to PUP for the rest of the season. Point being, if they insert Murray into the lineup, that's one thing. And if they go down this, they've got Tune, Dobbs, Blau, and Driscoll as their 4 quarterbacks right now, with the cut down coming up. They may not even carry a third based on comments made by the coach. But trust me when I say, Chad, the guy brought in to gear up for the future is Monty Ossenforth, the new general manager. Jonathan Gannon took this gig, and he's in a no-win situation as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals now, because he doesn't have a QB. They didn't have the backup stay, and now they're stuck with a situation as in the worst depth and the worst starting roster across the league.
I would hope that as someone that was brought in, he's being told, especially Monty Ossenforth and the ownership, that, hey, this is a complete reset. It's not even a rebuild. We're not really building much this year. The roster is going to be meager in your first season. Do the best you can with what little you have, and we are building this thing back, starting with the rookie class this year and what is going to be an absolute haul a season from now in the draft, and that's the team that you're going to coach. That would be a pretty bad way to go if you took this job, and because they go 1-16 or 0-17 this year,
well,
you lose your job if you're Jonathan Gannon.
He took the gig. Not many wanted it. People were turning it down, not even taking interview requests.
I think it'll be fun, and I'll be surprised if Kyler Murray plays a snap this season.
Chad, the Spain and the government, they've launched the investigation into the Women's World Cup kiss from the Spanish soccer president, Luis Rubiales, against Hermoso. And he has said it was consensual. She has said it's not. The Spanish team is saying that they're not going to play until Rubiales resigns or steps down. He has resisted pressure to step down, given the backlash. His mother is on a hunger strike, saying that her son is being treated from a inhumane hunt, is her quote there. Meanwhile, he's already been suspended for 3 months by FIFA, but the players aren't returning until he's not there. He can't return if they want the players to. The investigation will end up having him step down. He'll be told he's not welcome back as the president of soccer.
It's very odd because the initial response to this was nothing to see here. From the woman who was kissed, from him that he admitted he was, overly excited, wish he hadn't done it, but was just caught up in the moment. And the Hermoso, the woman that he kissed, even said, yeah, I kind of wish it didn't happen, but I understand the emotion of the moment. And even her teammates and her had a quote saying he was 10 out of 10 in terms of being above board with the team and with us throughout this whole thing.
But he said it was consensual. And she's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know why he's saying that after the fact. But everything that she said right after it was, I wish it didn't happen, but it's not that big of a deal. And said that it was, everything was above board with him. So we'll see.
Also, the U.S. Ryder Cup. The team's been selected. Brooks Koepka is one of the 6 captains' picks for the team. And he's the PGA Championship winner. Of course, finished second at the Masters. Chad, he nearly automatically qualified. And consider what this story would have been 6 months ago, 8 months ago, as you have Koepka on LIV as one of the captains for the Ryder Cup. Story no more.
Just a guy who's clutch, being added to the team in an international competition.
Makes sense.
It's the right move.
Ryder Cup coming up Friday, September 29th through October 1st. Coming up next with us, Michael McKenry, all things Major League Baseball. Next.
He has no empathy, heavy dementia, doesn't even know where the hell he is, and thinks the whole world revolves around him. He's literally telling people who lost their loved ones, who lost their homes, who lost their property, who lost their businesses about a 20-minute kitchen fire. That's a kitchen fire. And this jackass goes on and on and on about a kitchen fire. It wasn't he almost lost his home. I mean, do a little research. A kitchen fire. That's all it is. And this guy has the audacity to go in front of people who lost their island, their city, their homes, their livelihoods, their relatives, and discuss himself. And I can't even, I'm speechless. Every time I see it, I get so pissed off, I can't even tell you. I mean, stupid and arrogant are the worst 2 things a people can have. If you're smart and you're arrogant, you at least know you're arrogant. If you're stupid, like the dude started out last in his class in everything he's ever been. Now let's get that. The dude cheated on his first wife. The dude is stupid. And stupid and arrogant is no way to go through life. It's the deadliest combination. Deadly. Couldn't be a worse combination. And this guy's got it. He's so arrogant and he's so stupid and he's so not out here. And we got to listen to it. We seriously have to listen to this. I thought there was nobody worse that I ever wanted to listen to than George W. Bush. And then Obama came along with his blah, 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 stupid ass stuff. I mean, his idiotic, trying to be on the wall, every wall, trying to be smarter than he is, blah, 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 blah. And now we got this. This is just embarrassing. This just make you mad. This make you mad, and you got to say to yourself, hold the phone, hang on here. This is horrible. This is a horrible human being speaking to people that have lost everything, and this guy is talking about himself, comparing himself. He was so stupid, he stepped off a curb. Now, we're not going to show you the video. He stepped off a curb in front of firefighters in Lahaina, after the biggest wildfire in American history, and jokingly said, oh, the ground's hot. Well, no kidding. They just had the biggest wildfire in American history, you idiot. And he thinks he's being clever, and people guffaw. It's like Peyton Manning. He said, huh. He said, I can't believe that guy's so funny. It is amazing to me. It is astounding to me. It angers me to no end this jackass, this arrogant fool, gets up there and represents us, and he don't give a rat's double about you or me. Not even kinda. Not even sorta. He don't care about you, me. If he can't promote it, if he can't profit off it, he don't care. It's a career politician, hasn't done a damn thing in his life. I mean, you're sitting there and you've lost everything that you have, and this guy's telling you about, oh, I don't know, a little kitchen fire. Really?
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow with you across the OutKick network. It includes our YouTube channel. You can search out OutKick there and join Chad in the chat. Hope you'll subscribe, hit the like button, ring that bell so you know we go live each and every day, 3 o'clock Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Hot Mic. Chad, NFL Cutdown Day happening now. We are about 40 minutes away from the deadline. By and large, a large number of the players have already been notified in some way. You've got Colt McCoy, who knows he's out in Arizona. Cade York, fourth-round pick last year.
Yeah.
He's cut as the kicker in Cleveland.
Cleveland made quick work of him.
Houston linebacker Christian Kirksey, Chicago offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood, and New York Giants running back, former Jags running back James Robinson, who they traded for last year. He's also been cut. Those are the notables so far, and what is going to be, 1,500 or something, roughly, players that'll be cut loose. And then 16 can be signed back to the practice squad once they clear waivers, which is a 24-hour period. Those lists will be out tomorrow around 4 p.m. Eastern. But we still also wait for the deadline of Jonathan Taylor. Keep that in mind, too. Colts gave him a deadline of 4 p.m. Eastern on Cutdown Day today. See if he could seek a trade.
Didn't really see the Alex Leatherwood bust coming when he came out of Alabama. Both the Raiders now and now with Chicago, not working out for him in the NFL. There's always the cautionary tale. As important as kicker is in the National Football League, Hutton, drafting a kicker, I feel like more times than not, does not work out for the team that does so in the middle rounds or above. Cade York, the latest example for Cleveland, fourth-round pick, cut a year later. Indy did it. Someone's going to pick him up. Rodrigo Blankenship in Indy's another good example of that. And we got a lot of examples of it. It just doesn't seem to work out too often. Even though it's an important position, I can totally understand justifying a guy you truly believe in, because if you get the kicker and he's good and he's mentally strong and he keeps himself physically ready to go, it's not pulling things when he's kicking. I've always described it as a Supreme Court justice of the NFL. It's almost a lifetime appointment.
It can be.
How many Thanksgivings did we watch Jason Hansen knock it through the uprights for the Detroit Lions? All because he was a very good kicker that could do it for a long time. But it's becoming more and more of an issue for teams, especially when they use a draft pick on kicker.
2 kickers traded today. The Patriots traded kicker Nick Folk to the Titans for a 7th-round pick. The Titans didn't even have a kicker on their current roster. They do now in the veteran. He had 89% of his kicks over his 4 seasons in New England. New England had a luxury there, and instead of cutting the vet, they end up trading him and get a pick in return. And same goes for Denver. They trade for New Orleans veteran Will Lutz. So he'll now be kicking at Mile High, traded to Denver to begin the season. Chad, we've got college football to begin the season coming up in 2 days. Florida and Utah, Thursday night. Let's get it going.
I'm ready to go.
And from this perspective, I was stunned. I shouldn't say stunned. Surprised. I'm never stunned when the SEC does their way of playing football, winning in the trenches. But Utah was known for being stout up front a year ago, bringing guys back who knew that their defense was legit, and they end up winning the Pac-12 again, back-to-back seasons. But that opening weekend, Chad, Florida controlled the line of scrimmage. That's the key to this game again. And they had Anthony Richardson moments. All of that's fair. But can the Gators control the line of scrimmage against Utah once again? It was a close battle, but it was a battle that Florida was victorious in, because in the trenches, they got the extra yards when they needed to close it out.
Yeah, it looks like Cam Rising, coming off the ACL injury, is going to start in this game. That's big for Utah. I thought a year ago, I don't know that,
and he wasn't great in that game a year ago.
Florida did well in the trenches. I don't know that they dominated, because there were still some long drives for Utah where they were just running it. It's a throwback type feel with them, right? The way they line up and they go heavy, and they're going to have a lead blocker at times, and it's going to look like 1980s, early 1990s football pre-spread at times for Utah. Very excited to see this game. Excited to see the atmosphere. I've never been, but every time I see it on TV, one of the most underrated atmospheres in all of college football is Salt Lake City in Utah. And on a Thursday night to open the season should be electric for Utah versus Florida. All the thoughts on Billy Napier. I mean, is he in trouble in year two because he didn't get much out of Anthony Richardson? I think you've got really kind of a balancing act, too. If Anthony Richardson goes and immediately lights it up for the Colts and Florida struggling this year, how's that going to make Billy Napier look? I don't think Florida's going to be as bad as some expect. I expect a bit of a bounce back from Grant Mertz, where he's going to be better than he was at Wisconsin, but it starts on Thursday night. Excited about that one. Excited about Minnesota hosting Nebraska. We're going to talk a little bit later, Hutton, about good surprise, bad surprise in our prediction for Big Ten and SEC, a game that we started yesterday with another big proclamation today. And I may focus in on that game Thursday night, starting out between Nebraska and Minnesota.
Yeah, we may get to that in just a moment. But the key area here for Florida, and you mentioned the job security. The Florida fans I speak with, you know a couple of them here, they say he's not on the hot seat this year, that he's getting one more year, because last year he was more or less given the blank sheet of paper and said, hey, get rid of who you need to run off, who you need to run off. And he did. I mean, he kicked off the leading tackler who was returning from the Gators defense, for instance, before the season started. He's just now getting back to bringing in the players he wants there. And to me, he gets one more year, given the expectation. The SEC and Big Ten, for the most part, you eat your own as fan bases. Everyone's guilty of it. You get 3 to 4 years. Napier deserves that, considering how young Anthony Richardson was and him entering the draft when, by and large, many NFL scouts said he needed another year. He needs a redshirt year. He's not going to get that, and that's why Indy's already putting out the flashing light saying, hey, beware here. This is going to take some time. It may get worse before it gets better. That's the case at Florida, too. I think you can describe them the same way. And where would you set expectations? I don't think they're going to – Chad, when you say they're not going to be as bad as what people think, is that just a 500 season? I think they're a 6 or 7 win team. But that's based in part on their schedule, but based in part on the fact that they'll win a game they shouldn't, and then they'll lose a game they shouldn't.
Well, there's 2 big ones early at Utah, home against Tennessee. I think that game's huge for both Tennessee and Florida. Tennessee in the swamp, which they have not won in Gainesville since 2003. I was a junior in college the last time that happened, so it's been a while. I think expectation for Florida is always 8, 9, 10 wins. Now, what's realistic expectation this year? I think they'd be okay with 7 or 8. But, I mean, I'll throw this hypothetical out there. If they're 6-6 or 5-7, and you poll Gator fans and say, let's stick with Billy Napier for another year or go hire Urban Meyer to come back, which would they pick? Especially after Swamp Kings just aired? I mean, they would go for the big name. I totally agree. It is a bit unreasonable to want to fire him after 2 years, regardless of what happens this year. But I have found Florida to be an unreasonable place at times when it comes to patience. And all of the success they've had since they brought back Steve Spurrier as a Heisman Trophy winner to be the coach, they have been almost nothing but crazy successful. From that point on, in the early 90s to now, has built up a level of expectation that it's not okay to lose to all the good teams on your schedule and to lose to Vanderbilt the way they did a year ago. That's not okay at Florida. So I am anxious to see what happens. It's going to be tough early on. Utah, then they get a break, then they get Tennessee, then they get a break with Charlotte, and then Kentucky in the first month.
You're right about playing at home, though. They were 5-2 at home a year ago, and their home schedule's better this year than it was last year.
Yeah, they could very easily be 2-3 to open the season. When you look at Tennessee at home, at Utah, at Kentucky before you get to October and hosting Vanderbilt. If that's the case, I don't think it will be. They're going to win at least one of those games. But if they're not 3-2 or better after September, the heat is going to be turned up on Billy Napier, whether it should be or not, whether he needs to get an extra year after this one or not, regardless of record.
Then it's
2-3, it's going to turn up the heat.
But we also, and it won't matter in the moment. You're right. You have to factor in the Rashada BS that took place and how they end up with Mertz. I mean, all of that plays a factor where you've got a guy coming in and then all of a sudden he's not because you overpromise something from the collective point of view. That also needs to be considered. It won't be. I mean, in the SEC, by the time it rolls around to that, it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. Speaking of losing, Chad.
By the way, you know what else is going to be considered on Florida's behalf? They're currently third in the country in recruiting for this next class.
That's big.
Behind Georgia and Ohio State, ahead of Alabama, Florida State, Tennessee at 4, 5, and 6.
He needs
always
some
step
time.
one.
He's got to have some time there based on what he ran off.
Yeah.
And that's what he was tasked to do.
So, well, it's crazy looking back, and I because I just saw it, I keep going back to watching Swamp Kings. Mm-hmm. They lost 3 games in Urban Meyer's first year, and it was the end of the world to Florida fans. It was, this guy's never going to be Steve Spurrier. He is nothing compared to him. We got to look in the other direction. And they were talking like it was life or death to get Tim Tebow. That if Tim Tebow chose Alabama over Florida, it was going to be a death knell. Urban Meyer was saying as such, that he felt like his job depended upon Tim Tebow committing and signing with Florida. They get Tim Tebow, and they get the number 1 class in America on top of that because he recruited a lot of guys there. Then they got the number 1 class the next year, and guess what they did? They won 2 national championships in 3 years. So if it's a similar path for Billy Napier, he's off to a good start in this next class.
Yep.
They're third nationally. They're getting in-state talent. They're getting the guys that they want. So that's good news for Billy Napier. But a 2-3 start would not be good.
Chad, just tying in Rashada, he's now at Arizona State. And they have the self-imposed bowl ban where they're not going to participate in the postseason. Dillingham is there. He's back at his school at Arizona State, taking over as the head coach. This stems from violations of the Herm Edwards era. Herm Edwards back with ESPN. 5 other coaches bailed prior to any of this being – it's been a 3-year investigation, I believe. 5 other coaches have bailed since then. And the recourse, at least for now, not on the NCAA's stance, but from the university stance, is a self-imposed bowl ban now. The goal right now for Arizona State and the entire push all offseason has been about getting just to a bowl game. And instead of just taking a fine or whatever it would have been, like the Vols did. Now, it's a hefty fine. But Arizona State is relevant in the Big 12. They have found their parachute. I don't know why, with the momentum that you're trying to obtain, you don't have it, you're trying to obtain it, but you've got the energy there with Dillingham. We played some clips of him this offseason. We like what we hear from him in regards to NIL and his reaction to players he wants on campus. Chad, their goal is the Sun Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, the Holiday Bowl. I don't understand why this is the penalty and announcing it on the Sunday going into week 1 of the regular season after everything has been put in to going into the year ready to win 6 games. This is not the same as competing for a college football playoff spot or competing for a New Year's Day bowl game. They're a talented team, and they have young talent, but they're facing like 4 or 5 top 25 opponents. They believe they're not going to be the team they're actually believing they're going to be. They're not going to be world beaters, but they can be a bowl team. And for that to be the recourse of the almighty NCAA and the fear of them coming down and potentially taking away future games or, God forbid, vacating wins, I don't know why this is supposed to deter the NCAA and any penalty they decide to hand down in the future.
So much of taking over a new job, and I'll try to get through this quickly. We only got a short amount of time left in this segment. So much of taking a new job is not just recruiting and scheming and finding the right coordinators and doing all that. It's building a culture, and it's getting guys to believe in you. And it's being 100% genuine and honest with them and being real, because players see through BS. For Dillingham to take this and now essentially spit in the face with the university of the players that are there, that stuck with the transition, that are there to play for him, and tell them right before kickoff of their season that you're not going to be able to compete in a bowl game or postseason, I don't think that's a good start. And I don't think it's Dillingham's fault. But that's not the foot you want to lead with when you're starting to build a program. You don't want to look at it like, oh, I inherited these guys. I don't care about them. You want them to be your guys because they're your guys.
To their credit, they responded with a great practice. They play on Thursday, by the way. Michael McKenry joins us next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Oh, Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one. I have no idea. Tallahassee.
No, that's
Florida.
That's,
Yeah.
that's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know the capital of Tennessee? What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
Sad.
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50,
That's true, yes.
because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2,
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East Coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress?
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys. How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question. So.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that.
1777.
After that?
1789.
Before that?
1784.
After that?
1785.
After that?
1786.
After that?
1777.
After that? You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail. So.
Sixth and Peabody location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Pleased to be joined by former major leaguer and host of a brand new podcast, The Fort. Michael McKenry joins us, Major League Baseball analyst, our analyst here. The new podcast, Flash Fortward. Love the name. Michael McKenry and his co-host Jack Wilson will be on the pod.
He's been a guest of the show.
Yeah, and it premieres tomorrow, correct?
It does. We may drop it a little early. I mean,
okay.
There's a lot of excitement. I can hear the stuttering in your voice, how excited you are for this podcast. So I may drop it today.
I am. It's always great info. So yeah, I need a countdown clock.
It's like a little Christmas present. You know, drop it around 11 p.m. midnight tonight. You wake up tomorrow and there's a present underneath your tree, and it's in the form of your podcast episode.
I may just have to hire you guys for management team.
I'm here.
I like this.
I'm available
I like what's
for
going
hire.
on here.
Real quick, give us a synopsis of the podcast and what you hope we all get out of it.
So we want to focus on life, family, faith, and then obviously ball. I mean, the game gave us a lot. We want to give back to it, and we're both into development, and we're very enthusiastic guys with high energy, and we want to give back to the game the best we can, but remind people that there's families involved, there's kids involved, there's a lot of things going on through your journey to the big leagues, and really not shy away from it. So we're going to bring on guests, we're going to do things, we're going to have a lot of fun. I mean, we did some fun stuff early on. We did an Oppo intro to start it out where I pretended to be him, he pretended to be me, and we introduced each other so that way we weren't digging ourselves, but really we were digging ourselves. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And sure enough, we'll have both you guys on to have a good ball talk. He's a huge fantasy football guy. I'm going to learn and try to figure it out. I'm kind of like a meathead when it comes to that stuff, not very good. I like to be the GM or the owner and just say, hey, here's my money to try to win, and just kind of walk away and see what happens.
Flash Forward, the new podcast with Michael McKenry and Jack Wilson, it debuts tomorrow.
So I am curious, you guys are having fun on that podcast. Was Ronald Acuna Jr. and his teammates having fun when two fans left the stands to go give him a hug last night in Denver? Pretty wild scene there, Fort. What did you make of it?
The security guard tackling those guys. Like, you couldn't go in for a softer landing there. You almost hurt Acuna Jr. And the reality of it is, if you take him away from that team, they're not the same team. They're still a very good team, but they're not the same team. So you've got to be careful. Those guys got to have an understanding. You know, when they actually do wrap up those players, I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. is one of the best athletes on the planet. He could have taken care of business. He did a great job just kind of staying there like a statue. Dude just wanted a hug. But I mean, these guys should not be able to get on the field. The reality of it is, it does happen. And sometimes we make it a bigger deal. Look at him right now, just sitting there on the sidelines, just watching what's going on. I mean, it's always a funny joke as long as no one gets hurt. That's the
and
prayer.
he was fine, right? Like Acuna was immediately laughing and like giving the thumbs up. They're asking him, "Can you keep going? Are you okay?" And he had no issue with it. It looked almost like, remember the game like in middle school and high school when you would get on all fours behind your buddy and someone would shove you and you'd fall back over your buddy who was sitting there? The second guy that came through with the security guard behind Acuna, and he tries to hug him, it knocks him over just like that game back in high school. I'm like you. I'm glad no one was hurt in all of that. But you don't see that in every game.
You don't. They actually don't show a lot of it. It happens all the time. And a lot of times, unless national television or ESPN or somebody picks it up, they don't show it. I mean, a lot of times when it's happened at Pittsburgh, they don't even pan towards it. It's just this delay. And it's like, what's happening? And you look over at camera 16. It's like, oh, dude's running across with his shirt off and he's diving over the tarp into the stands and doesn't realize there's a net, which happened last year.
Ronald Acuna can become the first player with over 30 homers and over 60 stolen bases. He needs one more home run to do that. Right now, the odds-on favorite at DraftKings Sportsbook to win the NL MVP is Mookie Betts. Who would you vote for right now and why?
I would vote for Acuna Jr. and or Freddie Freeman, because both those guys are doing some things that are unprecedented. You think about beating, records that have been set for 50, 60 years. Both these guys are doing stuff that are unprecedented. You have Freddie Freeman just hit his 50th double, beat the all-time LA Dodgers record with over a month left. And then you have Acuna Jr. is doing something that's never happened. And you have to look at that. And then defensively, if you add those two guys, Mookie Betts and Acuna Jr., I think that's who it'll boil down to. But you have to talk about Freddie Freeman. The year he's having is just remarkable. And to be teammates, come on, let's go.
Chad, I know where your vote would lie.
Yeah, it's I'm an Acuna guy, but I love Freddie Freeman. I mean, I'll always love Freddie Freeman and the way he plays. I know, Michael, you often look at, how good of a teammate is someone, right? And that's one that you guys I know are looking at on your podcast as well. Freddie Freeman, one of those dudes that's always been known as top-notch in the clubhouse teammate guy, along with others in the league.
Yeah, he's aging like fine wine too. I mean, he's getting better, and I think it's because of his simple approach. He brings a lot of the old school game into that new school reality that we're in, where it's a true outcome game. And he goes to the Dodgers, and so does Mookie Betts. And you think, are they going to lose their ability to hit with two strikes? Are they going to go for that true outcome? These guys have actually made everyone around them better. They've become kind of the staple of what you can be in the big leagues when you can walk, you can run, you can drive in runs, you can sacrifice yourself by moving guys over, all those old school things that we don't do very well anymore. We more or less focus on, hey, walk, strike out, slugging. These guys are doing a little bit of all of it, and it's because they sit in the dugout, they sit in the clubhouse, they talk to each other. I mean, a great example is JT Martinez. He goes to LA, him and Mookie are really close. He is on Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts' hip constantly trying to grow and learn, as are those guys. They will take any information and digest it and use it to their advantage. That's why those guys are going to age very well. They're going to continue to get better until they walk away from the game.
Michael McKenry with us on Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick network. I know scoreboard watching is already happening, but when does it really lock in for those in the playoff hunt, or positioning-wise for those that know they're headed to the postseason?
I think it's constant, and it shouldn't be. I think you should just focus on the day, focus on the game, and not worry about what's maybe lies ahead over the next couple of weeks. If you do, that's when things start to tumble in the wrong direction. But I'll tell you right now, that AL West right now, they are looking every second, every minute to see what's happening. It is a fight to the death. Seattle, came out of nowhere. Rodriguez just getting absolutely blistering hot. You knew he was going to have some breakout because he started slow. The trends always show that guys that are, really, really good are going to eventually break out. He did, and they are just hitting the league like an absolute hurricane right now. And I don't know if Texas and Houston could have ever imagined this would happen.
Well, Houston's they're 5-5 in their last 10. Texas, they've won 2 games out of the last 10 games. Meanwhile, you mentioned Seattle, 9-1. They were talking about going after Ohtani around the All-Star break. They chose not to. We brought this up last week. The teams that were in the mix with the Angels prior to the Angels deciding they were going to keep him, what's the reaction like now, knowing what happened to Ohtani and the elbow?
I mean, you still got to look. He's still a, elite hitter, maybe one of the best, if not the best in the American League or all of baseball. So he's still top notch, and he's probably still going to win the MVP without having to pitch anymore, because what he did has never been done. He's done it 3 seasons in a row. So any team he goes to, knowing the human being and that factor, which I always talk about, you guys just mentioned it, he's a great dude. He makes everyone around him better because he's always smiling, making funny faces. He remembers that this game is just that, a game. Too often guys make it more like work. And I think that's why you see guys, which I love Max Scherzer, I love Verlander to a certain extent. These guys are business. They're not as much fun as Ohtani is. So when he comes in the clubhouse, he brings an aura that those two can't, plus the stuff.
Of the teams in the mix for either winning the division or to get a wild card spot in the NL Central, and we're seeing the Brewers separate just a little bit within that division, which of those teams is the most dangerous in the postseason?
Cincinnati. And the reason I say that is because they have some thunder. And you need thunder to go into the playoffs and win. I don't think the Cubs have the starting pitching. I think they're very consistent, but I don't know if I'd go in and trust a bunch of guys that throw 88 to 92 to go in and dominate, especially if you don't have Marcus Stroman, leading that pack. But Cincinnati has some thunder. I mean, they have some really, really impressive arms. They have some elite talent at the young level, and they have Votto leading that charge as a leader. So I think they're scary when it comes to Central Division. But the team I would worry about if I'm in the National League right now is the Phillies.
Yep.
I mean, they did it last year. They seem to be doing it again this month. They've hit more homers than they ever have in franchise history. Those guys are heating up, and Bryce Harper, when he heats up, it seems like that entire team heats up.
What's the difference with a guy like Harper? Mookie Betts certainly factors into this question too, of heating up. You can count on them to do that. In the primetime moments, in the clutch performance moments, they're known for being those guys. In the guys you've come across throughout your career, is there a sign, is there a distinct advantage that they have over the day-to-day player that's very consistent but not showing up when it really matters?
Absolutely. And a lot of times it's something that people don't even notice. It's a foul ball. It's a catch in the outfield where they didn't hurt themselves, necessarily. I think when Bryce Harper went to first base, I think anxiety went away because he wasn't thinking about his arm. He came back super early, isn't supposed to be throwing that much. And then when he got to the point where he could handle that load, and then all of a sudden he can pull with that bottom arm, which is his throwing arm, he starts hitting for power and things start going really, really well. I mean, everybody was talking about his power output. The reality of it is nobody's even tried to play when he was as a DH. So there's going to be some repercussions. That's why Mike Trout coming back from his handmate, he's not going to have the same power, but he is Mike Trout. It may be faster than others because he's going to be on the field faster than most. So you got to look at all those things, but there's always one instant. And I remember Andrew McCutchen during his MVP years, we were really close, and he would look at me after a foul ball, and I'd know immediately, man, he just got his timing back. He's ready to go, and he would smile, or it'd be a take, and he'd smile at me and wink. And sure enough, the next pitch he'd hit either off the wall, in the gap, or over the fence. It was remarkable. That's what those guys can do. Those guys that have that elite ability and that elite mindset, they can do things that others just can't.
Is owner John Angelos the only person that can slow down the Baltimore Orioles right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, they have guys in the minor leagues that would be right in the middle of the lineup in the big leagues, especially for the Pittsburgh Pirates right now. I mean, you look at Holiday Sun, he's 19. He's doing things that are just absolutely outstanding in the minor leagues. Defensively, running, contact, power, he's showing it all. And there's a chance he gets to the big leagues. And if he produces just a hint of what he's doing, that team's going to be even better. So, yes, he's the only person to slow him down. I don't know if it could be this year. Like you guys said last time, it may be a major league effect like the movie where they're kind of fighting against the ownership to say, hey, you better sign us. You better keep us as a team because we're special.
Flash Forward with Michael McKenry and Jack Wilson premieres tomorrow, the new podcast. The Fort has been with us. Michael McKenry, always great. Appreciate you, man, as always. And, man, can't wait for the playoff runs to happen because we've got some tight races already.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to go, it's one of those games. Let's go. Baltimore, Atlanta. I still think those two are going to be end up in the World Series.
Got
so let's
the hookup for Baltimore. Whenever we want it, he's in with the organization. Him and John Angelos are golf buddies. They're hanging out all the time. So he'll have us up there at any point.
Hut, you're in his ear. Stop it. Tell him to calm down a little bit.
I'm not a fan. I can't even say, I have the hookup anymore. I'll be suspended. I won't be allowed to go inside the ballpark.
Nobody can suspend you, Hut.
Yeah,
no chance.
We'll find out.
I am
Thank you for it.
Subscribing to the podcast right now as we speak.
Countdown clock drops tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
I really
man.
appreciate it.
You too. Have a good one.
Take
Michael
care. God
McKenry.
bless.
Same to you. That will be a great podcast and a great trip with him too, Jack. We can get the Braves Orioles.
I would love that.
Lined up.
Can you imagine a Braves Orioles World Series? Hutton shuttle up from Atlanta to Baltimore in between games as the series shifts with the Fort.
Chad brings his long list of fan relics and jerseys, and I just have my letter that
I'll get in trouble for culturally appropriating by doing a tomahawk chop in Baltimore. I'll get the chop started, and someone will chop me out of there.
They'll throw you out of there. Angelos will have it done.
Yeah. I see that goofy tall guy down in the 18th row.
See if he'll pay double.
This is me being optimistic.
He can stay if he'll pay double.
Yeah, if he will give us money to retain one of our minor league all-stars, then he can stay. But if not, he's got to go.
Chad, coming up, we've got some headlines of the day. Cut down across the NFL in 5 minutes. That's the deadline for all teams to be down to 53. We'll give you the very latest there. Plus, our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments, our predictions for the SEC and the Big Ten. Straight ahead on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us across the network, which includes streaming live at our YouTube channel. OutKick is all you search. Hit subscribe. You join Chad in the chat. You see all the great shows on demand live. We are live each and every weekday afternoon, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. The deadline has arrived for teams to get down to 53 players on NFL rosters, and that just happened literally a minute ago. A lot of trades today, maybe on the back end of rosters, but in the case of the Dolphins, they're sending their first-round pick from 2020, Noah Igbenegany. He is headed, former Auburn Tiger, I believe, headed to Dallas in exchange for cornerback Kelvin Joseph. He's a former second-round pick, so they're swapping corners there.
Dallas has been active.
The Chiefs, they have, let's see, Chris Jones continues to hold out. So they have traded a rare interdivision trade with the Raiders for a defensive tackle, Neil Farrell. So they need some depth there on their roster. And the real main headline that's just now come across is there is no trade for Jonathan Taylor. This was the Colts' deadline for Jonathan Taylor to seek a trade, find one that the Colts were willing to accept, and find something that was suitable for him to accept as well in terms of a contract. This from Schefter. No deal. Indianapolis did not find what it felt was a fair value offer for Jonathan Taylor. It's not trading. It's all pro running back today. With no trade, Taylor is now expected to remain on the physically unable to perform list as they begin the season. That means he's on that list for the first month, the first 4 games of the season. So he'll miss games against the Jaguars, Texans, Ravens, and Rams. And Schefter goes on to say the next best opportunity to make a trade there would be Halloween. October 31st is the trade deadline. And then...
Didn't Jim Irsay, though, say not in October?
He did. We're not trading him now and not in October.
Not now and
which
not
was
in
July,
October.
Which was July and
so
not
could
in
have done it in
October.
October or September, but if I'm going to take him at his word, he will be a Colt because he will not make the trade in October.
I mean, and keep this in mind, too. I mean, the Colts could franchise tag him next year if they want to, or they could try to trade him. Point being, there's no end to the saga of Taylor and the Colts. And now on PUP, this was supposed to be a 6 to 8 week recovery time, by the way, on the ankle surgery. He had this surgery in like January.
Yeah.
And now
he's
we're
now
here
claiming complications from it.
Yeah. And he was at minicamp, he was saying that he felt like he would go into camp ready to go, 100%.
What was it
healthy.
Michael Jordan said in Last Dance about Scottie Pippen? Scotty was being selfish. When Scotty got the back surgery late and missed the first few months of the season, this feels built like a Scottie Pippen type scenario that, suddenly my ankle, there's some complications, not feeling right. I think your team doctor may have screwed it up. I'm going to have to go on the PUP list for a little while. The best chance now for the Colts is that someone loses a running back and gets desperate or feels like they are a Jonathan Taylor away from the Super Bowl, and then they give up a lot in return come October. Even though Jim Irsay said he's not going to be traded in October, that could be the best case scenario for them because while money and circumstances can change a lot of relationships, this feels like it's been irreparably damaged.
Yes, I agree.
Between Taylor and Irsay and the Colts. I don't see him coming back and ever being happy. So the best case for him and the Colts would be someone loses someone where they get a little bit more desperate and they give up more in return, and the Colts come to an agreement to trade him.
Melvin Gordon cut by the Ravens, and Von Miller, just an update here, he will begin the season missing the first 4 weeks at least on the physically unable to perform list with the Bills. So he's ineligible to play there. He could return after the team's matchup against Miami. So there's the update from Buffalo's end where they need extra pass rush help. They tried to add more this offseason. Miller, though, not going to be available. Tore his ACL or had explored. They explored the issues with his knee in like December, January in surgery. So now they hope they get him back midway through the season instead of missing half of the season.
Got an update from Ronald Acuna Jr. today after the Braves batting practice at Coors Field in Denver. He says this through an interpreter about last night's altercation with 2 fans who stormed the field and accosted him in the bottom of the 7th inning. Says, quote, I was a little scared at first. I think the fans out there were asking for a picture, but security was able to get there. I think everything is okay. Everyone is okay. Ronald Acuna Jr. taking the high road, no big issue, no harm, some foul, but either way, he's okay and ready to move on. He was fine immediately. I think he could shake someone up at some point, not knowing what's going on, but he never seemed like he was upset during the whole episode.
I think the only thing of concern is just what could be in play, right? What could have been. And you know at some point it's going to hit the fan with something like this, right? It's not it's not going to end where you just drag the protester off and they had nothing but a smoke bomb, or they wanted nothing but a selfie.
Yeah, and some people, their initial reaction would be to shove the person away.
Yeah.
Acuna was just like hands up, not trying to touch them and letting them hug him and wrap around him and not doing anything. It just depends on how frightened you are when it happens. I mean, they could have elbowed the guy, could have shoved him completely off of him. It could have been ugly either way.
Yes.
I mean, Acuna could have gone off on the guy, not knowing what was happening, and then the person could have been injured doing that also. So thankfully, it was really just 2 or 3 security guards that had to drag the one guy who was adamant he was still going to get to Acuna off the field, and nothing else happened.
Chad, we'll get back to the NFL with John McClain coming up in about 15 minutes or so. SEC and Big Ten, they rule all things college football. For the marquee matchups will be taking place and what we presume the college football playoff matchups as well. And throughout the week leading up to kickoff of the season, some bigger questions, some predictions, storylines across both conferences. Today we're taking a look at who we believe will be the biggest surprise or the biggest disappointment in terms of anything, team, coach, player, certain side of the football. Go anywhere we want to with a different answer for the SEC and for the Big Ten. But let's start in the SEC. Most pleasant surprise for me, and I've bought into this before, and thinking long and hard about why I bought in, it's due to a lot of the same reasons why I'm buying in again. Kentucky's offense. Devin Leary transfers in from NC State. Ray Davis is a transfer from Vandy, their best offensive weapon. Solid, steady. He's now running the football and taking over for an offense that wants to run the football well. And they have speed at receiver. Barryon Brown played right down the road from our studio. They have another group of receivers that are certainly capable of breaking the game open. And then Liam Cohen's back from 2 years ago. The offense did not live up to expectation last year. Cohen is back in the mix. Sign me up for the 2021 offensive version of the Kentucky Wildcats. I think that will be a pleasant surprise compared to what is expected, which is just an average season for Kentucky where they drop back down the ranks, kind of where they were last year, and not get back to where they were 2 years ago. I think we'll look at this Kentucky offense as one that will be very consistent on the scoreboard.
If Vandy's rushing attack is any indication about how important and good Ray Davis is, now that he's left for Kentucky, that's great news for the Wildcats because Vandy rushed for 49 yards against Hawaii in game 1. That shows that Ray Davis may have been a big part of that rushing attack a year ago, so certainly something to watch. Good surprise for me. It's a team that I've been high on throughout the offseason. I think Texas A&M's offense under Bobby Petrino is going to roll this year. How about this for a fact? Northwestern had more players drafted in this past draft than A&M. That's inexcusable.
Wow.
The talent has not been there. Now, the young talent is there now with the 4- and 5-star guys they've accumulated. That young talent needs to come into their own now. Connor Wegman, I think, has every tool to be a great quarterback in the SEC. He gets his top 4 wide receivers back, Aeneas Smith, Evan Stewart, who is a speedster, and his tight end, Donovan Green, all can be weapons for this Aggies offense. You've got a gifted play caller in Petrino, someone who knows how to get playmakers the ball. Reuben Owens is a 5-star freshman running back everyone wanted, #1 player in America, 6 feet, 200 pounds, game-breaking ability. I really do think that this is the year where A&M starts to figure it out. And it starts on offense, and it starts with Bobby Petrino. They've got 2 future starters on the offensive line in the NFL, Bryce Foster at center, Reuben Fothery at offensive tackle. They've got the pieces to be an explosive offense. Jimbo Fisher held them back a year ago, along with some bad luck. I think Bobby Petrino in the mix now, what they have at the skill positions, and those 2 great offensive linemen and solid guys around them, A&M's going to be really good this year. Their offense will be a pleasant surprise.
Biggest disappointment for me in the SEC, Chad, and keep this in mind. I'm not saying this is a total bust and failure. I'm not buying into the full throttle expectation of Joe Milton, because I've seen Joe Milton the last time out. Now, not the last time out against Clemson. That factors in too, but I've seen him be very up and down, ride the waves. And that's the one thing Hendon Hooker was great at. He protected the football and, by and large, extremely consistent. Milton has been the opposite of that. I think in many ways, the comparison of where he can be in the draft with Anthony Richardson is totally fair. The comparisons that I can make of why I think he'll be Anthony Richardson this year for Tennessee is also totally fair. One game, locked in, loaded, ready to go. And the next, can't complete a 10-yard pass because he throws it 20 yards downfield, or has a receiver running open 40 yards downfield and he throws it 80. Those are the things that I expect will continue to occur, because this isn't a 19, 20-year-old quarterback. This is who he is. And I think Tennessee's going to be good. I just don't think they're going to be great, because they're not going to have the great consistency at quarterback that they did a year ago.
I think all of the intangibles that you bring up that Hendon Hooker had, Joe Milton physically has everything gift you could want in a quarterback. I am reluctant to think that he's going to live up to the hype, though, because of some of those intangibles. I also, and I've seen this before with him, knowing pressure, not seeing it, or seeing it when it's not there at times. That's something Hooker was great at. I don't know that you can really teach that at times.
That's a good point.
His pocket presence, not seeing someone right around him, it could lead to some fumbles, could lead to some sacks that don't need to be there, and you stop a drive because of it. They're going to put up some big numbers, I believe. I think he's going to put up some big numbers in games, but to get to that next level or even repeat the 11-2 season of this past year, I'm with you, Hutton. I think it's going to be difficult.
He's a different runner, too.
I don't see Milton in that Heisman conversation the way Hendon Hooker was a year ago, but I also think with that offense and with some of the guys they have coming back and some of the guys they have coming in, like Dante Thornton, the transfer wide receiver from Oregon, they're going to continue to hum offensively, but not to the level they did a year ago.
You'll be able to tell, Chad, and I know you know this, you can tell when he's on and when he's off.
Yeah.
I expected to be on against Virginia. We'll know a lot when they go to the Swamp. He could play great there too. But I do expect the dips to be low. And you come back and you go, man, they just didn't have it. And you'll tell in the first half. It's just not there.
Speaking of the game against Virginia, just announced that game is sold out at Nissan Stadium, which surprises me a little bit, quite honestly. Sold out as of now.
Where are you headed in the biggest disappointment?
I'm going to be quick on this one because this is really just a gut feeling. I think Carson Beck is going to be a disappointment at Georgia. And a lot of this is a compliment to Stetson Bennett before him. Carson Beck is a much bigger prospect, much bigger guy. He's 6'4", 220 pounds from Jacksonville. We've seen him some in mop-up duty, but not a lot. I think Georgia is due for a fall at that position from the moxie of Stetson Bennett, the clutch playmaking ability we saw from him. I think they take a step back with Carson Beck. I think Georgia's going to be fine. I think Georgia's going to be right back in the college football playoff. I don't think Carson Beck lasts all year as a starter. I think there's going to be some movement at some point. Could be Brock Vandergriff, could be Gunnar Stockton. Someone's going to come in for Carson Beck because he's not getting it done the way Kirby Smart wants. That's my prediction of a disappointment this year.
Chad, we'll get to the Big Ten coming up later in the show, but Davey Hudson and I were chatting about this yesterday. I nearly chose Carson Beck. But then I thought to myself last night, Georgia's schedule allows him to look a lot better than what he might actually be. That factors into my theory on him. I don't know. I don't think we'll know about him until it gets time to play either Tennessee, and it may not even matter then, until it's time to play for the SEC championship and then head to the college football playoff. That's when we'll find out about Beck.
Yeah, I think there's a chance, to your point, where he starts throughout the year, but the one complaint for Georgia fans would be, man, if we just had Stetson Bennett at quarterback or had better quarterback play, we'd be blowing everyone out.
Yeah.
So they're going to be winning close games, or games they think should be a blowout will be closer than they think, because the passing game won't be quite what it's been in the past when they're really going at the rate they want to go at. So I think that could be part of it, and maybe he keeps his job just by default because they're going to sit around and say, well, why would we pull someone when we're undefeated and continue to win games?
Meanwhile,
that may be part of it.
Meanwhile, the other team to look at schedule-wise with the opposite effect is Ole Miss. Ole Miss's schedule last year, Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech.
They're 7-0, right?
Tulsa, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. That's and then Auburn. And then they lost to LSU. That was their first loss. Then you start to look at their schedule this year. They have Mercer, Tulane, at Tulane, Georgia Tech, Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Auburn, and then they get to Vandy. Then they host Texas A&M. This is a gauntlet.
Buckle up, Lane.
This is not going to be pretty, even though they may be about the same level of team they were a year ago.
Good chance for your guy Quinshon Judkins to be the offensive MVP of the league in those games.
They got to have him. Got to have him. We've got John McClain next. The latest across the National Football League on HotMic.
Turner he was struggling. They were booing the hell out of him in Philly. On August 4th, his numbers were this: through 108 games, he's hitting 236 with a 289 on base percentage and a 656 OPS with 10 homers and 35 RBIs through 108 games. The Phillies crowd gives him a standing ovation. And it's not a coincidence, guys. So you fans out there, there are players who you can trigger in a really good way. Since then, in the 14 games since then, 370, 414 on base percentage, 117 OPS, 4 homers, 12 RBIs. Okay, not a coincidence. This game, every athlete, every athletic endeavor at this level is about confidence. It's all confidence. And there's a positive, and for anybody that's ever done sports psychology, there's a physical component to emotions. And by that, I mean your body releases different chemicals when you're happy, sad, depressed, pressured, motivated, all those things. And as an athlete, I can speak from personal experience. In October, I was a different human being. And I felt different. And my emotions were different. And my adrenaline was different. And when I pitched in front of big crowds when I pitched in Yankee Stadium, I was different. The crowds create those things, home and away. I remember in 1993 when we were playing the Braves in the playoffs, this was the time of the politically incorrect tomahawk chop that the Atlanta fans were doing. It's kind of when it started. And I remember they were doing that in Game 5. And Terry Mulholland told me before that game, he said, think about this, man. You have a chance to go out there and stop 45,000 people from talking and being emotional. And it led to the 2001 quote when I said, or 2004, when I said, I can't think of anything more enjoyable than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. And that's a sign of respect, by the way, New York fans, always was. But we feed off this stuff, man. The good players do anyway. You know what? I'll say it, and you hear it here first, and I don't want to be first, but Aaron Boone's going to get fired, and that's going to suck because none of this is his fault. And every player in Yankee pinstripes and these guys know Aaron, and I promise you they care very deeply about this guy. He's the kind of guy that warrants that kind of emotion. Every one of them should feel like crap because it's their fault he's going to get fired, period. You couldn't ask for a better, more calming influence. I guarantee you there's no panic in his voice. But correct me if I'm wrong, but as a player, it always felt like Yankee fans wanted to see panic when they were losing. They didn't just want to panic. They wanted the organization to panic, right? You heard, I think earlier, what was it, last show, didn't we, John? We were talking about last show, trade Judge, trade Cole, blow it up. And it's like, no, number one. And you almost can't, number two. So if you can't fire the players, and firing anybody else would be meaningless to the field results, you got to fire the manager, the coaching staff. And unfortunately, I think that we're about to see that. And that sucks because it's not his fault.
Rosters are at 53 across the NFL. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. John McClain joins us. SportsRadio610.com is where you can read his work, listen to those podcasts and more. And, John, busy day across the league. Not busy for Jonathan Taylor. No trade for the Colts and Taylor with another team. Today was the deadline. By all accounts, he's headed to PUP for at least 4 weeks, and then we wait and see what happens after that.
Well, first of all, nobody was going to give them anything for damaged goods. He was hurt last season. He's hurt now. He wants a big contract, bigger than any of the other running backs. So things need to calm down a little bit with him. As it is, I'm physically unable to perform. He misses 4 games. Then he has 3 weeks after that to get ready. And I think it'd be foolish to think that he was just going to snap his fingers and be ready, considering how long it's been since he's played. So he would need that time for practice. And then they could wait up to the trade deadline and trade him to a team that's lost a running back, to a team that thinks they need to replace an injured player to help get them to the playoffs or the Super Bowl. And that might be best. I've seen people throw out there that he should get a 3-year contract for $40 million. I think if he could get $12 million a year, he should be ecstatic. I think now, based on what Josh Jacobs got to come in, that's the new barometer over Saquon Barkley. But I think once it's official on PUP, it'll quiet down a little bit, and the Colts will be able to talk about football and their rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson.
I do wonder how injured he is. I know they failed him on the physical, but initially, based on the procedure that he had on his ankle, it was like a 6 to 8 week recovery time. And in minicamp, he was talking about being ready to go, and he's going to be healthy and ready to step in. This was all prior to the meeting on the bus. Was this more of a hold in, quote unquote, or is this legitimately an injury? Because I know they can't just put him on this list unless there's something there.
Now, can't speculate because I don't have a clue. The thing is about him, remember when they said he had a back injury?
Yeah.
He said, I don't have a back injury. The best way to stash somebody is to say they got a back injury because you don't have a bruise or anything back there. You just got to say, hey, my back's killing me. Most of us have had back soreness. I've had a back operation, and yet it didn't show. But he didn't want any part of that. So it's been an ugly situation. If he doesn't get a contract he wants from the Colts, then maybe he'll go on physically unable to perform for the season. The way the rules are, if you're ready to be activated after 4 weeks, you're activated. But if you're not ready, you go on PUP for the season. And maybe that, but then they'd have the same situation all over again.
Yeah.
John, got a question coming in from our YouTube chat. David wants to know, why did the Texans cut linebacker Christian Kirksey?
Because he'd been out a long time. They have young linebackers. Christian Harris, who played the second half of last year very well, had a great offseason program, 3rd-round pick last year. Henry To'oTo'o from Alabama Even though he was a 5th-round pick, and everybody was stunned that the Texans got him in the 5th round after what he did in Tennessee and Alabama, he's improved. Then they signed a free agent. Denzel Perryman was hurt last year, but 2 years ago led the Raiders in tackles and made the Pro Bowl. So Kirksey'd been out hurt with a hamstring injury, hadn't been able to contribute anything.
So a lot of news coming in as the cuts just announced here recently. Some news in New England where they cut Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham. The Patriots have one quarterback on their roster right now in Mac Jones. John, what's going on?
I'll tell you, they'll have another quarterback by the time they begin regular season. It's strange because Zappi played really well last season. People thought he played better than Mac Jones when Jones was hurt. Now, Malik Cunningham, I saw him in the first game against the Texans. He's just a runner. He'd be more in line for a practice squad position. But leaving yourself open for that, they're either somebody out there you want, a veteran, somebody you're going to trade for, because they're taking a heck of a chance. I'm guessing Zappi's not going to clear waivers.
Yeah.
There's such a shortage of quarterbacks. When you put a guy out there that's had some success, people are going to take him. Just like there's some stupid enough to give up a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance.
John, the amount of people that are retweeting that news with just photos of Tom Brady is amazing. They've got their quarterback in mind who they're going to have on the roster, and it's Tom Brady, which we will get to see Tom Brady, reunited with New England in their opener as he's honored in that game, but it won't be as the quarterback, that's for sure.
Wouldn't that be something?
Amazing.
Billy O would be reunited with the Patriots offense, but that ain't happening.
Keep an eye on what's going on in New England there. John, Colt McCoy is one of those veterans who's free. The Cardinals cutting Colt McCoy, who took all of the first-team reps throughout the offseason, OTAs, minicamp, camp. They end up with Clayton Tune, a 5th-round pick, and then they trade to go get Joshua Dobbs, the backup in Cleveland, and he's in the mix to start week 1 against Washington. What do you make of what the Cardinals are doing and the decision to go about it this way if in fact they're just really trying to name a starter in 2024 by the name of Caleb Williams?
Well, come on now. We know what they're doing. You can't make players tank. People thought, well, why in the world did Lovie Smith go to Indianapolis, win the last game, cost himself the first pick in Bryce Young? Well, you can't tell players to fail. Players know that if they don't give their best, it's going to be on tape, and other teams are going to see it. Now, what you do is you limit their chances to win by cutting Colt McCoy. And Colt, I think, is 35, going to be 36 years old, but he's definitely better than Tune. Dobbs has never won a game. You guys saw him flash last year. Clayton Tune, I saw a lot at the University of Houston. He started like 8 years. He's older. He's got a lot of starting experience. I'll bet you they're going to end up starting him over Dobbs because there have been really good reports. So there's nothing better than to guarantee losing games and start a rookie quarterback who you know is going to be up and down. And if you're starting with a team that's terrible, it enhances your chances to lose. And it's pretty obvious what they're doing. The league can't make them do anything about it. And there's people out there I was saying, boy, Kyler Murray's got to prove something. Kyler Murray's proved something, that he's out of there. It's going to cost them a fortune on the salary cap, but you can afford that when you got a rookie quarterback who will be on a 5-year contract if you pick up the 5th-year option or you extend him, which the good ones get extended. So Murray will be out of there. People act like there's going to be a long list of teams interested in him. I don't think so. He never would have gone first overall if it wasn't for Cliff Kingsbury, who saw him play when he was in the Big 12 and then he was SEC in the Big 12, and Kingsbury loved him and convinced him to take him first overall. And only certain kind of systems can handle him, and also he's not the hardest worker, and people know that too. So that's going to be really fun to keep up with. But it's either going to be Caleb Williams or Drake May. And there's people out there right now that think Drake May ultimately will be picked a spot higher than Caleb Williams.
Well, and the Kyler Murray storyline picks up whenever he's actually available to return. I know he's starting on PUP, but an ACL injury doesn't keep you out for a full season, right? Like that would be also just blatant in how they handle the quarterback spot. And I know he said he was hopeful that he would return for week 1. That's not the case. But he's, based on the timetable, it was mid-October, late October is when Kyler Murray could come back and be 100%. Guys respond different to the surgery, but John, that's the next Jonathan Taylor saga as far as PUP versus active roster, and a guy that's considerably better at quarterback than anybody they have right now.
Von Miller blew out his knee at Thanksgiving. He's been out 10 months. He's starting the season on PUP. You know, you can never tell for sure. If I'm Murray, I don't want to play with that team. I'll tell them, put me on PUP for the season. Let me rehab. Let me be in the best physical shape possible, which will help you get more for me and have more teams be interested in me in a perfect world. And so if he comes back and looks bad with bad teammates, if he comes back and gets hurt, that works against the Cardinals and it works against Murray. So just shut him down for the season.
All right, John, what did you make of the Cowboys trading for Trey Lance and giving up a 4th?
There was talk before the draft that the Texans were interested in Trey Lance because D'Amico Ryans and their offensive coordinator, play caller Bobby Slowick, were in San Francisco for the last 6 years with Kyle Shanahan. Texans had no interest whatsoever. That's just another one of those stories generated by national media. Now, he couldn't beat out Sam Darnold to be number 2. So if Kyle Shanahan, people always say he gave up 3 once, well, he got 1 back. So in essence, they gave up 2. But if you paid dearly for a quarterback like that, and you've already given up on him because he can't stay healthy, because he's not very good, and he can't beat out a journeyman like Sam Darnold for the backup spot, and then the Texans have no interest in with 2 coaches that were there with him every day, what does that tell you? You're looking for a sucker. And so you found one. And Sherry Jones admitted he didn't talk to Mike McCarthy about it. And he made that deal for 4. People say, well, they're trying to put pressure on Dak Prescott, who's going to have $59 million cap figure next year, to redo a deal to lower the cap figure, but they don't want to pay him $50 million a year like the great quarterbacks. Trey Lance is not going to scare anybody. He's not going to make Prescott and his agent think that, oh my God, Trey Lance is behind me. He's going to get this job. They'd be better off saying Cooper Rush. They would have been better off saying Will Grier. Just had one of the greatest auditions in the history of quarterbacks in preseason. And it looks like they've got rid of the wrong guy. But I think it's ridiculous to make a trade for Lance if you think he's anything but a third-string quarterback at this point in his career.
John knows football. He's a Hall of Famer. He also knows entertainment. He has a SAG card.
Yep.
He is an accomplished actor as well.
Voter.
So when the two come together, we got to ask about it. John, do you feel like Hard Knocks New York Jets has lived up to the hype or gone below it? 4th episode airs tonight on HBO.
As someone who's watched every Hard Knocks show since the first one, I love them because it takes me places I can't go. I've always been fascinated by it. So it's the Aaron Rodgers show. And it looks like it's designed to make him look like a great guy, a normal guy, and all this stuff that happened in Green Bay, like, what in the world? It must have been the Packers. That Aaron is a great guy. Just watch Hard Knocks. I think it's been the best whitewashing of a reputation that I can see. Now, when he starts doing Pat McAfee again, he may start talking about going into the darkness and all those things he had out there, but he's looked great on there. People are fired up. I'm fired up for the Jets. Robert Saleh, the head coach, was here for 6 years. Hope he does well. But, man, it's all about Aaron Rodgers. The Jets should have been paying HBO to do Hard Knocks there. It's made them look so good.
What I really like, and you're right about it being the Aaron Rodgers show, John, what I liked about this last episode was, though, you're starting to see a little bit of the elimination of the honeymoon period, just a little bit, with Aaron Rodgers and his teammate with the offensive line problems, but also the moment where Randall Cobb is talking to all the receivers and saying, if you aren't in the spot where he expects, he will stop throwing to you. He will not throw it to you if he does not trust you. And he said it's all great now and smiles and everything else, but he's this close to lighting into us if we don't show up ready and knowing the playbook the next time. And I'm thinking maybe they're teasing a little bit of what's to come in this episode tonight. But you got a little bit of that, other side of Aaron Rodgers where, like every great quarterback, he's going to hold his teammates accountable, and he's not always going to be the nice guy.
That's a great point, Cadillac, because he was here and the Texans cut him, and he went back to Green Bay because he was one of the players that Rodgers insisted on having on the roster. And I think he said, I heard him tell a receiver, Aaron is the godfather to one of his kids. And he was a great guy while he was here, but he couldn't wait to be reunited with him. Then, of course, they got him with the Jets. He might not have been a guy that should have been on the 53, but there's no way you're going to do anything to make Rodgers upset him, because you've seen how he can be when he's upset. But I can't wait to see him get on the receivers and the linemen, if indeed he'll show that. Maybe he won't show that. Remember, they control everything that's on camera. Nothing out there that we see on Hard Knocks has not been approved by the Jets.
John, we're out of time. I will note on the way out, though, Damar Hamlin has made the initial 53-man roster in Buffalo. That is remarkable, considering where we were January 2nd. John, thank you as always.
Inspiring story.
Yeah, we'll catch you up next week as always.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.
Big game week. Getting ready for week 1, John.
It's here.
Can't wait.
We made it.
Coming up, there's a quarterback that's struggling to bond with the rest of his team. We'll tell you why next on Hot Mic with Ed Withrow.
Davey Hudson of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, pay my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With it?
Ooh, purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile. Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow. Yeah.
My favorite sports movie, Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time? Probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie. Probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Amari, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait, what was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're going to see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie, though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oh, we're going to watch both of them. Maybe on the same night. We'll probably watch. I think you got to watch Barbie first. Just so you're not, Oppenheimer might be a little too intense. You know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one. Oppenheimer.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky was the Patriots' 2022 fourth-round pick. He played in 4 games last season. He started 2 games for the New England Patriots. They cut him today. They also cut Malik Cunningham, who was trying to make a transition to wide receiver. Then they were running him some in the fourth quarter at quarterback during the preseason. He was an undrafted rookie. They cut him too. So right now, just Mac Jones is the quarterback on the depth chart for the New England Patriots. Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow rolls on. Mac Jones is your QB1. Chad, there is another QB1 that's currently making the dominating, at least our Twitter feeds currently, TweetDeck and more.
Can you imagine the hero's welcome that Tom Brady would receive back in New England if he came out of retirement for a second time and rejoined the New England Patriots? It would be amazing to think about it. I keep thinking about in WWE when Chris Jericho came on the scene with Y2J back in the year 2000, that if you just tease that, it would be that type of entrance for Tom Brady in the opener if he was back with the Patriots. Obviously, it's mostly tongue-in-cheek with everyone, joking around, but the moment you see Patriots cut 2 quarterbacks, leaving 1 on the roster, the amount of NFL writers that are having fun with this and just posting Brady memes, Brady GIFs above the story, it's awesome.
I cannot help but think, like,
something's going on.
Last year, Mac Jones, and there were reports that he and Bill Belichick weren't seeing eye to eye. I wouldn't either, based on the coaches that he selected to oversee the passing game and the offense overall. They bring in Bill O'Brien, and Bailey Zappi was thought to be the guy that was pushing Mac Jones for the starting job last year. Like, they may move forward with him even if Jones came back and was healthy.
He was one of the stories of the season for a 2-3 week stretch.
And now he's off the roster. I can't help but think, like, for all of the buzz about Belichick being on the hot seat, the seat's a little warm. You got Robert Kraft, who wants to win, get back to the playoffs. He's noted the last time that happened was 2019. Prior to that was their last victory in the postseason. Who are they bringing in? Are they trading for a QB? And you're not just going to sign a backup off the scrap pile when you've been trying to develop Zappi, who, by all accounts, even those covering the team, they're surprised by this move. We'll keep you updated as news comes out on this, as if they make a claim, if they make a move, if they make a trade. There have been a couple of those. They traded their kicker, Nick Folk, to the Titans today, who Titans didn't have a kicker on the roster until the trade happened.
Maybe this is a chance for Phillip Rivers to come out of retirement, too. Who knows?
Maybe Big Ben will get a call.
Could be a big surprise out there. A big surprise would be Big Ben. Get it?
Chad, if Brady were to come out of retirement, that would swing the line. Super Bowl odds would, I don't know if the Patriots would be picked last in the division anymore. What a division that would be. But we would head over to DraftKings Sportsbook is where we would be to check that out. If you haven't taken your shot with DraftKings, now's the perfect time to do it. If you're a first-time user at DraftKings Sportsbook, the exclusive deal is for you. Begin by depositing as little as $5 in your sportsbook account. You can make your first bet of $5 or more on any game. And here's the kicker. Not only do you get any cash winnings from your bet, but you also instantly pocket $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Those bonus bets, they roll in as 8 separate $25 bonus bets, so you get plenty of chances to up your game. Terms and conditions apply. You've got to be 21 or older in a legal betting state. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER is the number. If you're ready to play, head over to OutKick.com/bet. OutKick.com/bet is where you can go to claim this offer. Check out even more deals from our partnered sportsbooks. OutKick is your one-stop shop for betting content.
You mentioned the Super Bowl odds. I actually just opened DraftKings, and they have a promo going right now. Add plus 200 to any team's odds to win the 2024 Super Bowl.
Go ahead and bet on those Chiefs.
Might as well.
Might as well go ahead and double down on the Chiefs.
Chiefs or who's the second best odds?
The Eagles at plus 650. Chiefs are plus 600.
It's not common that the team that loses the Super Bowl gets back.
What are the Jets?
Following season?
Jets are currently plus 1,600. That has them 7th best odds.
What are the Patriots without Tom Brady, knowing that they're eventually going to be joined by Tom Brady?
Scrolling. Plus 6,500.
Okay, that's the one.
Well, you don't even need to up it by 200. I would just up the Chiefs. Go
Jump
with that.
in on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm following Mike Reese, by the way, who's on top of all things Patriots news. We'll be able to find out if they have a quarterback in mind to either back up Mac Jones or come in and. Who knows? Maybe they were in on Josh Dobbs. They wanted Dobbs to come in.
Maybe. We got a new segment on the show, right?
We do. So that's my quarterback. And with more, here's Davey Hudson.
All right, guys. So a story, we'll intro the segment, then we'll get into the story that you teased on the other side, Hutton. But Matthew Stafford, according to his wife, Kelly, having a few issues bonding with his teammates. So we thought, you know what? We're going to go through a segment where it's just, that's my quarterback. That's the guy that, I'm behind him 100%. And we put this stinger together just for this segment.
And that's Terrell Owens there.
Yeah, well,
that's my quarterback.
Unfortunately, the audio was off on that, but it was Terrell crying saying, that's my quarterback.
We promise.
Classic scene. Classic moment in NFL history. You've all seen it. You've all heard it before. We're just describing it to you.
And so
I actually like a segment where we just play stuff and then we just describe
Next time
it.
we'll just mime things.
What is the commercial where the guy at the office, no one wants to hang out with him because he's a mime? I'm like, oh, he's in a box of some sort. He's in a house. They're trying to figure out what he's doing. We could do that also.
But guys, with the news of Matt Stafford coming out, and again, it's a whole other conversation. But our first one
coming out
saying that he's not bonding with teammates.
Come on, Chad, help me out here. You know what I'm getting at.
I just wanted to clarify for our audience of what you meant by that. Okay.
He said he can't bond with teammates because he can't connect with them. He doesn't know how anymore.
Per his wife. So
it's like a flip chart. It's like Devil Wears Prada, where you have the flip chart of headshots and then their name, and you have someone behind you that whispers their name. He needed that printed out so he could go up to and introduce himself and actually have a conversation with the new additions. That's what happens when you F them picks.
Yeah.
You don't have guys that you recognize from April on your roster.
The premise to this is very simple. Davey's going to throw out a question we can only answer with one of the 32 starting quarterbacks currently in the NFL. It could be anything, like you'll see today, but inspired by this story, could be anything from any number of walks of life, and we have to basically place a starting quarterback in this role, and then we will claim that's our quarterback. Mm-hmm. I doubt Hutton and I will have the same answer on any of these, but we don't know. This is not prepared, we promise. Davey?
Yeah, as most people say, millennials cannot live without their phones, technology that's been given to them because that's all they've ever known. Put myself into that camp. So our first question is, which quarterback needs technology to survive?
Chad, I thought long and hard about this because this is set up for a grand slam with Kyler Murray, right? Call of Duty, Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Call of Duty, Kyler.
I thought this was too easy. So I'm going with the new starter in Arizona, Joshua Dobbs. This guy obsesses over technology. He could be an astronaut. His dream is to work for NASA. He could not live without technology, without his phone, without a device, without a connection to what he obsesses over, his hobby, his dream. And it's not holding the football. It's astrophysicist Joshua Dobbs. That, to me, is the answer of the guy that would literally have withdrawal if you took away any cell phone, any technology, any computer. I mean, the guy's a wizard, but he's got to have that device in front of him because he's doing other things. Astro Dobbs is doing more than just practicing his spiral.
Most likely to become Elon Musk as an NFL quarterback is definitely Josh Dobbs. That's a good one. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence just because look at him.
Okay.
There's something about the hair. There's something, I don't think if he had to be without technology because he's in a cabin somewhere in the woods, he would find the right conditioner to keep that mane properly managed. So everything with that, I don't even know what his connection to technology. I just look at Trevor Lawrence and think that is a guy that has to be on technology a lot of the time. So I'm going with him.
Doesn't tweet all that much, though. Like, there's not a presence of Trevor Lawrence. He's also forgotten about because he's in Jacksonville.
Also doesn't strike me as a woodsman.
He's been living, he's been MIA, though, in Jacksonville, Chad.
Yep.
Yeah, Hut, to your point on Dobbs, I would say, making the Astro-Dobbs comparison, we currently have more technology in the palm of our hand than they did in 1969 when they first went to the moon. And, Chad, on Trevor Lawrence, the other thing I would add there is I know he had his phone on him whenever Butch Jones texted him and Emory Jones the same thing, saying, hey, you're my number one quarterback option, and then neither one of them came to his school. So
I definitely saw it, though. He was definitely on a phone of some sort. Yep.
So that's the only connection I can make there.
Good.
But, guys, just going the exact opposite. So we're talking about which quarterback would be able to survive, best fit to survive in the wilderness. If you've ever seen the TV show Alone, we're just sending you up into the Arctic wilderness for a couple of months, and you just got to make it. You got like a few things that you're able to throw on your back and go.
Well, this quarterback already survives the Arctic wilderness 12 months out of the year. It's Josh Allen. Josh Allen grew up on a farm. Josh Allen went to school at the University of Wyoming. He is a cowboy. He's burly. He looks like he has sort of the excess body weight to survive a cold winter in the woods in the wilderness. I look at Josh Allen and I see that sort of straggling beard, and I think it's a guy that could actually take a hatchet and knock down a tree of some sort and burn wood for his own warmth. Josh Allen's the answer here. Josh Allen, that is my quarterback for this answer.
So I'm thinking just who I could see just disconnecting and never hearing from. And there are a couple of quarterbacks that come to mind for me. I thought about Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson kept all of his contract negotiation quiet because he represented himself. And then he got on social media and started spouting off about guaranteed contracts. No one listened to him. I mean, so in that regard, he could shout and no one would hear him in the wilderness. I think that's a good one. I didn't go with him, though. I thought of the quarterback. I'm going through all the quarterbacks in my mind, Chad. I'm thinking, who have I not thought of in like 12 months? Geno Smith is the answer. Geno Smith is forgotten about as soon as he flashes onto the scene with the great season in Seattle. We mentioned the wide receivers. We mentioned the additions in the draft. No one mentions Geno Smith. We don't hear from him. We don't see him. We don't hear sound bites. He's not. The cameras don't find him. Give me Geno Smith because the disconnect is already there, even though he's one of the top starting quarterbacks returning from the 2022 season.
Okay, I'm surprised nobody went with Aaron Rodgers.
I thought that's where Hutton was going. We talked about a guy could go into the darkness.
Rodgers loves love. He loves seeing his name in the headlines.
Hallucinogenics.
Loves seeing his name in the headlines.
I could see Rodgers like bedding down the way a deer would in the woods and
Rodgers
sleeping for a while.
But he comes back and lets you know he's back. Geno Smith's been disconnected since he entered the NFL, even when he was great last year.
Very fair points by both you guys. And our final question, this is you got three options on this one. All rookie quarterbacks, we know they're going to start, but which quarterback has the best chance to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years? And your options are Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson.
Ooh, this is a good one because it's all bad situations here. Yep. I'm going to go Bryce Young just because of more of the unknown right now in Carolina with Frank Reich coming in. I think he's the best of these quarterbacks also. So I'm leaning Bryce Young and in a bad division, although I guess you could kind of say that about the other two as well.
I don't buy into Jim Irsay and the Colts. I don't think Carolina is as stocked draft pick-wise as Houston. And I also have seen what happens with Frank Reich teams. They're good. He's certainly coached a team to win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. and with with a season that they lose their quarterback and they go on to win, all great. Give me C.J. Stroud and the Texans because of the actual idea, guys. Believe it or not, that they have a sense of common sense. There is a glimmer of hope in Houston that's been rudderless and leaderless. And now it looks like they've turned the ship around. They made the right call by drafting C.J. Stroud. They then draft Will Anderson. They show some balls and do that and draft him third. And they still have 8 picks in next year's draft. And they have tons of money coming up in free agency a couple of years from now.
I'll leave you with this, guys. There's only been one quarterback drafted in the last decade that's won a Super Bowl.
That's Davey Hudson's fact of the day.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Tuesday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network. Coming up, we talk more college football with Matt Zenitz, who is the On3 national college football writer for On3.com. Plenty to dive into there. Chad, coming up in a few moments, we give our pleasant surprise, biggest disappointment prediction for the Big Ten. That's in a matter of minutes.
Here's a tease for you.
Okay.
Coming down 47 seconds ago. A story that's going to derail my best surprise in the Big Ten.
Really?
That's a tease.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
First.
Could derail my most pleasant surprise.
Chad, that would be, you know how to tease a topic, right?
It's not good, Hutton.
You could
it's not good.
Certainly write a tease for a paper. AI can't do that. AI sucks, and we pointed this out.
Yes, they do.
One of my topics last week. The artificial intelligence and the computer-generated stories where it's insert high school football team name here. I chose Gannett because Gannett owns so many papers across the country. They own one right here in Music City. The Tennessean was running this crap because Gannett is using AI-generated high school football recaps. What they're doing, well, they're not doing it now because they're pausing this practice. And they're lying to you, by the way, in their description of what they're saying and why they're pausing it. They want the perception that they're local. They want the perception that every day matters. They want the perception that as you see the headline of so-and-so school beats so-and-so school, that they're in your neighborhood, they're in your backyard, they have you covered. Because they doubt, by and large, you're going to click on that particular headline and read the story, but you'll see the headline as if they covered the event and they're all over the place across your area. And that's a flat-out lie. It's a bold-faced lie because they're using AI to write reports that are comical, that are journalistically just awful. And you go into a high school English class, and we could find students that could write better than the ad-lib section of AI and the computer systems they're using here. But they're putting this on pause, Chad. This is a week after there was a screenshot of the Westerville North against Westerville Central high school game in Ohio. Again, we pointed out it was Christ Presbyterian Academy that had a recap that was AI generated here in Tennessee. They are putting this on pause because they received so much backlash in regards to it. Here's the spokesperson that told Axios from Gannett that they're putting this on pause. In addition to adding hundreds of reporting jobs across the country, we are experimenting with automation and AI to build tools for our journalists and add content for our readers. We are continually evaluating vendors as we refine processes to ensure all the news and information we provide meets the highest journalistic standards. That's bullcrap.
Whatever.
The highest journalistic standards sound like this at Gannett. It's like our rundown each day. Just throw it to the side. Talk ball with a human instead of whatever's written out, and then you hit enter and it inserts the team name for what you're looking to promote, which is just a lie. It's a facade. We're covering your community. No, you're not. You're simply not. And the highest journalistic standards were shown. You don't buy into that based on the fact that you're allowing this print to go out, hoping no one would notice. Unfortunately, someone did. And this wasn't just one paper that went viral. It was one paper, one screenshot, and then you can open up your paper. I doubt anyone does that anymore. Open up your laptop. Hopefully, you're unsubscribing. I subscribe to the model of if you're not getting what you say or what you're told that you're getting, unsubscribe. Don't go to a channel and subscribe. Unsubscribe. Because they're betting you'll never do that once you hit the subscribe button. And I'm guilty of that too. I need to be better at it. We all do. We're guilty of allowing Gannett and other companies to be lazy. And at least in this case, they're called out for it and they have to hit pause. And they're bragging about hiring more people while not hiring someone to actually look at the copy that's generated by a computer.
And it's also, it puts employees in an uncomfortable position to support and promote the product they're putting out in a disingenuous way, because, we know people who work for Gannett, as an example, or anyone that's doing AI-generated stories. And I see some of their coverage of high school football even locally, and everyone that's watching right now, I'm sure, has someone they follow locally for high school sports coverage or local sports coverage in some way. And I see them promoting their product overall, and I cringe, because I'm thinking how difficult it must be to support this when you know what Hutton is talking about is happening with AI-generated stories and everything else fake that's going on. Fake, left and right. It makes it hard for people to promote the platforms they're on when they don't believe in it. That's what I think when I see these AI stories in Gannett. I think it puts some pretty good reporters and journalists in some very difficult spots to where they have to defend overall what's happening. And I think it's impossible to do.
Well,
and people that are actually human writers don't want to support it either.
But human writers don't have names beside their product anymore, what they're producing. Companies now want puppets, and they just want someone reading off of a teleprompter that's pre-written for them instead of by the person reading it. I love being live every day, because no one's going to write something in a script that I'm going to read off of a teleprompter into this camera or into this microphone each day, period. I'm not going to be told what I have to say. And in this case, this is just the bare bones crap that Lead AI, this is what they claim to be as a company, Lead AI, that the Gannett is using. We write hundreds of unique news briefs in seconds, and we publish them to your website automatically. We use thousands of human written variations so your content never looks the same and reads beautifully. And if you read anything in Gannett that's written by Lead AI and recaps, it's the same story, insert school name here. As far as journalistic integrity goes, Gannett didn't even look into the company that they started to use with the Indy Star, with the Tennessean, or with the Columbus Dispatch.
Matt McCloy is the only person I allow to write anything for me that I say on air. That's the only one.
Again, it's more about being a puppet.
Do you have that script ready for me, Matt?
And
for this next segment,
and having someone pull the strings instead of actually having a columnist in town. I miss the days of knowing the columnist in town that is going to give an honest reaction, one side or the other. You're opening up the paper to read their opinion and big take on the story of the week. Every 2.5 days, they had to produce something new. And, they're writing 3 columns a week. That's just not the case anymore. Now they just want 3 or 4 paragraphs, and they throw 3 or 4 pages together in a hard copy print. And that's not on just newspapers. That is across media in general. They're not spending money on journalism anymore. It's just time filler and clickbait.
The local columnist is a bygone relic that I loved, that I wish would come back. The one that's trusted, that their background, they've been around for a long time in that area. You trust their perspective even when you disagree with them. Boy, that is a relic from a bygone era that I really wish would come back.
They're printing more letters to the editor than they are printing employees' opinions on something.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
I want to talk about another bygone era relic that seems to have gone away. Parenting. I watched BS High on HBO, and there's a lot of talk about this documentary. I thought it was very well done, very entertaining, while also makes you think about a lot of different facets of society and question different things. And that's what great documentaries do. They make you question. They make you think. And I think BS High, about Bishop Sycamore, for those that don't know the story, a fake high school that came to prominence because somehow they got on ESPN and got boat raced by IMG Academy back in 2021. This is a behind-the-scenes look at Roy Johnson, this absolute criminal con man. You can try to make any excuses for him that you want. It's all hollow. The guy is a criminal, and he conned a bunch of kids and their parents, I guess, into going to a make-believe boarding school where they had no place to board and no school to attend. And I'm watching this the whole time, and they do have a couple of mothers of the players that are interviewed as part of this documentary. And I keep going back to this question. Where are the parents?
Yeah.
Where are the parents in this? Kids got duped, but I'm not seeing any parental guidance, control, questions being asked about if their kids are going to school or not and what's happening if they're trying to actually, people are helping them along with their dream of being a Division I college football player. It is sad. And don't give me this, well, it's underprivileged areas and single parent house. I know plenty of great single parents out there. I'm not seeing a single parent in this whole story. And by single parent, I mean one parent with a brain that's actually asking questions about the wellness of their own child in decision making. That's the pathetic thing about this whole documentary. Roy Johnson is a con man, criminal, all of those things. He is the bad guy of this story. That's my big takeaway. The kids are the unfortunate pawns in the whole story. But the reason that God made parents is to try to protect kids who are in high school of making bad decisions, not send them to a make-believe school and not double-check it before they see what's going on. Part of the scheme that was happening was Roy Johnson was forcing players to file for loans through payment plans during COVID, where you were getting paycheck protection payments so they could pay him false tuition to attend what? Nothing. Just to play in football games and get a second chance to do that. The whole story is sad. The saddest part of this is parenting in America and our culture. I don't know if it's no longer cool to worry about your kids or to parent them or what's going on, but it's pathetic that I didn't see a single sane parent in this entire story. And I see these poor kids who are being duped into trying to live out their own dream of getting a college education on scholarship to go play football by this guy, Roy Johnson, and not one parent stood up to this guy or asked the proper questions about the well-being of their kid.
Like, to your point, just to further, like, just from a coverage standpoint, how does it blow up and build to that moment?
Well, it's crazy. There's a lot of facets to this. There were two guys who said the whole time, this is fake. This high school doesn't exist. A guy who was an investigator for the Ohio High School Athletic Association is interviewed as part of this. And I've been saying this forever, and no one wanted to cover this story.
But this was on ESPN, right?
Yes.
No
one wanted to cover it until ESPN aired it.
Yeah.
Basically, they had the guy on. He's like a matchmaker for high school football teams across the country. And he just saw Bishop Sycamore and allowed them to be a part of it.
But I'm saying, like, how does ESPN not realize what's going on? How do you select that game? I realize IMG Academy's on the other sideline, but there are plenty of games IMG Academy
It's a lot of people asleep at the wheel, just assuming that someone else did their due diligence on it. And they see this as, oh, look at their schedule. Because the guy who made their schedule basically was told, hey, they came to me and said, I want to have the toughest schedule in the country. And he just gave them the toughest schedule in the country. Other teams that have a hard time finding games that are really good, he had them play against them. They played a game 2 days before the game on a Sunday on ESPN also. It's a crazy story. And I highly recommend it. HBO does a good job with most of their documentaries. Certainly their sports docs are always really good, really well produced. This is another one of them. But again, where are the parents? If that was just in my mind, in bright lights flashing the whole time, where are the parents? Where are the parents? The quarterback's mom was interviewed as part of this as one of the team moms. She was the trainer for their game against IMG Academy. They told Canton, where the game was played, they were going to have a training staff with them, and they were top-notch, and this and that. And there's a guy who tears his ACL, and she's on the field in cut-off jean shorts, a bedazzled shirt that says, like, QB mom on it.
Yeah, she'd be tailgating.
And someone's going over there saying, do you have a medical staff trained to do this? And she says, I'm the trainer for this. And I'm thinking, why on earth? I don't know if there's a dad around or not. Don't care. You're the mother that's there. Do you not take your son off the field and say, we're not doing this anymore. He's coming home with me. I think they live in Texas, too, and they were allowing this to take place in Ohio. Again, a lot of parents asleep at the wheel.
What do you have, Davey?
Well, I was going to say to the point about how that game happened, ESPN should have done more diligence, or do their due diligence, but nobody else in Ohio wanted to play IMG. And so that's how they somehow, after going down this long list.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean ESPN has to air the game.
No, but
Like,
I think
that's my question.
they
It's
were
like,
going to that area just for IMG, and this just happened to be IMG's opponent.
Yeah, it was definitely IMG was the TV part of it. But, I mean, it's crazy that the Ohio High School Athletic Association investigator is telling multiple media outlets and his own governing body they don't have a school. This isn't a school.
Right.
There's no evidence that they're a school, and yet they're still allowed to make a schedule and do all these other things. It gets into the weeds in a lot of this, but basically there's no rules preventing some of the things that happen because no one ever planned for the possibility of someone making a make-believe school. They just thought it's so far-fetched that why would anyone want to do that? So now they've had to put rules in place since then.
so what happened to this guy, this coach?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to. I guess I can spoil it. This whole documentary, he says, was a play by him to start it again. He wants to have Bishop Sycamore come back and be an actual school.
So he wants to be an actual.
Well, he says Bishop Sycamore's coming back. I'm getting funding now. We're going to do it again. We're going to run it back.
Good luck.
But he's a criminal.
Yeah, good luck with that.
He beat up his girlfriend. He steals from Best Buy. He's a con man. That's the takeaway from it.
And he's got a special where he's trying to run it back and actually.
And in the end, he says, hey, thank you,
build a
HBO,
school.
for allowing me to get the word out. We're back. We're coming back. 2023.
Matt Zenitz joins us when we come back. We talk all things college football. And then later, we dive into the Big Ten. We give our biggest surprise and biggest disappointment prediction next.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy thinks that all voters should be able to pass a civics test, so I'm here on Broadway to see how we're doing. Can you name 3 cabinet positions?
Oh, Secretary of State.
Yep.
Secretary of Labor.
Yep.
And we'll go the Secretary of Education.
Correct. What is the capital of Tennessee?
That one, I have no idea. Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
No, that's Florida.
That's Florida.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know the capital of Tennessee?
What the hell? These people don't even like me.
All right, I'll give you a hint. You're standing in it. How many U.S. senators are there?
Way too many.
Well, they're way too old, I'll tell you that.
Not enough to do the job right, that's for sure.
If something bad happens to the president, who takes over?
The vice president.
Who is our vice president right now?
What does it start with? What's the first letter start with?
K.
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. When was the Constitution written?
1976.
1787. How many amendments does the Constitution have?
32.
27. How many U.S. senators are there?
More than 50.
That's true, yes.
Because there's 50 states. There you go.
And how many senators are from each state?
2.
So how many is that?
100.
There you go. It's just basic math. You got it.
I have to really think.
What ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
East Coast.
Atlantic, then.
There you go. If something bad happens to the president and the vice president, who takes over?
First one up from Congress?
And who is that?
Some old man.
Do you know what ocean is on the east coast of the United States?
Pacific?
Atlantic, sorry. Wait. Atlantic. What is the capital of Tennessee? Nashville. It's Nashville, guys. How many years do we elect a senator for?
4.
6. What about a congressman?
That's 4.
2.
It's just a trick question, so.
Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general in what war?
World War II. He commanded Operation Overlord and D-Day invasion.
Correct. Okay. When was the Constitution written? Before that.
1854.
Before that.
1818.
Before that?
1777.
After that?
1789.
Before that?
1784.
After that?
1785.
After that?
1786.
After that?
1777.
After that? You were so close.
1778.
No.
Kanye West, Kanye 2024, big time. I wrote him in West Virginia, put him on the ballot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? So proudly we hail, so.
Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Onion with Rowe across the OutKick network. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Thursday night, we've got Florida and Utah. The home-and-home series. So this ties into Georgia a bit. Georgia's schedule was supposed to include Oklahoma. And because they were starting the home-and-home, and Oklahoma's coming into the SEC next year, they didn't allow Georgia to host Oklahoma because it's a payment deal where you have the return game, but it's going to be scheduled anyway based on the conference schedule. Compared to Texas and Bama, where they're wrapping up that trip here this year, where you got the Texas on the road against Bama at Tuscaloosa. So
I love matchups like this because when you first see it, it's one of the least expected things you'll see. Florida and Utah. And then once you see it on the field like we did a year ago, you realize, oh, I needed this. I needed this matchup. And now I need it again on a Thursday night in Salt Lake City.
Matt Zenitz joins us. He is the senior national college football writer 4on3. Matt, great to have you on the show, man. Hope things are well, and I know you're ready for football like we are.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on and definitely ready to get even more of actual football to talk about and to be able to get past this point of year where projecting and speculating and all of that kind of stuff. So it'd be nice to be able to get to that point with even more teams around the country.
Amen.
What is the anticipation like for Florida and Utah coming up on Thursday night, knowing what we saw last year, knowing that Utah was expected to go on the road and win in the Swamp? They did not. And now I think even less of the amount of those predicting this game expect Florida to show up and beat Utah on the road. How do you read this game?
It's tough to get a great read on it considering the uncertainty with Utah's quarterback situation. I don't know what your guys' expectation is with Cam Rising and just that quarterback deal as a whole, but it makes it more unpredictable from my standpoint than it would be if we had a great feel for just what's actually going on with Cam Rising and the quarterback position as a whole at Utah. The thing that I'll say with Florida is that I know not being projected to win the SEC by any means, not being projected to be among the better teams in the East this year, but I can tell you that the feel within that program is that they are further along now entering year two than people outside that program probably give them credit for or realize at this point. We'll get a chance to see now whether they're on point with feeling like that, but they do inside that program have more belief in Graham Mertz than probably people do that saw him play at Wisconsin the last couple of years. They feel like they have one of the more underrated and better running back duos in the country with the combination of Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. And again, just overall, they feel good about the growth and progression during the course of the last year under Billy Napier. And this is obviously a great opportunity for them now to just show some of that progress.
Well, and part of with anyone that coach that may be on the hot seat or not, the itchy trigger finger with the AD is going to come down to who's available. Like every year, if there's that big-time coach that's out there, that could make it a little bit quicker for someone to try to get rid of the current coach and go to a new one. There's also always, Matt, and you wrote about this, up-and-coming assistant coaches across college football that are becoming hot names for possible head coaching jobs. Can you give us 2 or 3 of those names that you're hearing and you wrote about that could be the next big thing in college football?
Yeah, I'll start with a completely obvious one. So this won't be groundbreaking to you guys whatsoever, and probably to a lot of people that follow the sport closely. But Brian Hartline is an absolute stud, and that's no secret to the combination of us or people in the administrator world. So for me, when it comes to lists like this, I try to be really thorough, try to gather a wide range of feedback from around the country. And I can tell you for this list specifically, talk to double-digit people in the administrator world, a combination of ADs, other administrator sources around the country. And Brian Hartline, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, is a very popular guy in the administrator world and someone who has been on the radar already for Power 5 opportunities, even going back to this past cycle. And I would expect that to continue moving forward. One of the interesting names to go along with that probably outside of Brian Hartline was the most popular name coming up while working on this list was Alex Atkins at Florida State. So Alex is somebody else who has gotten head coach consideration in the past, has interviewed for jobs before, and the stock very clearly is on the rise for him heading into this year at Florida State, where obviously they have a chance to do some big things in the ACC and on a national level this season.
Matt Zenitz with us, On 3's national college football reporter, talking all things Week 1 kickoff. Georgia, Alabama, new quarterbacks, and that's just scratching the surface on the reload that's happening at the position across the Southeastern Conference, Matt. Which spot is most intriguing to you, with the transfer coming in or the new guy that's now ascending to the starting role across the conference?
So it cut out a little bit during your question. Do you mind repeating that for me?
Which situation is the most intriguing? And it can be Alabama or Georgia, but it can also be one of the transfers because we've seen a lot of change at that position.
Yeah. So I think as a whole, the quarterback dynamic around the SEC is going to be interesting as hell heading into this year. Two guys that are former transfers that are particularly intriguing to me are a combination of Spencer Rattler, who I've continued to hear terrific things about coming out of South Carolina. Like I can tell you there are big time expectations for him in Columbia, inside that building in South Carolina, based on his play, continued progression during the course of the spring, fall camp. They are talking up Spencer Rattler big time and just how he has continued to look under the new offensive coordinator there, Dow Loggins. And I would say to go along with that, another former transfer that I think not only am I interested to see how he looks on Saturdays now, but I think a lot of people around the country are probably very curious to see, as well as Joe Milton at Tennessee. So we got a taste a little bit the end of last year of just the step forward that he's taken since the last time that we had seen him as a starter in 2021, where I obviously, and what's a nice way of saying it was very much flawed at that point to the point that it was replaced by Hendon Hooker, obviously. But we saw the end of last year, including against Clemson, that he was a better improved player compared to what he was in 2021. And Tennessee feels good about just the continued progress there during the course of the spring. And even just since the end of the spring, the additional step forward that he has now taken during the course of the preseason. It was efficient, good in both of their scrimmages. It was continuing to showcase just improved accuracy, anticipation, leadership ability, maturity, just across the board improvement in those areas. It was doing well even at points of the preseason and in the first scrimmage, for example, where a few of his top receivers were out. And probably one of the best compliments that got about Joe, just out of talking to people on the Tennessee side, was that he has become better at making the people around him better as a result of him being in there and just raising the level of play of his teammates when he's in there, which was something that was apparently clear during the course of that first scrimmage, for example, where a few of those top receivers were out.
Matt, who's the quarterback that we don't talk about that everyone's about to know or learn about over the course of the start of the year?
I think Billy Napier would want me to say Graham Mertz.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the direction I'm going to go, but that's another one. I'm very, very much intrigued to see what Graham Mertz actually looks like now, just based on some of that continued feedback that have gotten out of the Florida camp. And I know that they feel decent about how he's done during the offseason, and we're about to see whether that's justified or not. Probably one of the quarterbacks on a national level that I don't think it's anywhere near enough credit, pub, any of that kind of stuff right now that I expect to blow up this year is Cam Ward at Washington State. So the Pac-12 obviously is loaded this year when it comes to quarterbacks with not only Caleb Williams, but Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Yeah, you have big names like Shedeur Sanders, DJU from Clemson. Just across the board, you have some big name guys around that conference, and it leads to somebody like Cam Ward getting overshadowed to a large degree, and probably outside of that part of the country, a lot of people have no idea who the hell Cam Ward is.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, that kid, just even based on what he's done in the past, going back to when he was an award-winning player at the FCS level, and even at different points last year at Washington State, flashed to the point that is on the radar for NFL scouts heading into this year and has draftable grades from, for example, the scouting services that NFL teams use just to kind of get a baseline on guys heading into the year. And I'll just say this, based on just what I've continued to hear about him and what he's looked like under their new star 27-year-old offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, who was at Western Kentucky last year, it sounds like Cam Ward could be on the verge of big things this year. And even if people aren't talking about him right now, I think that I think there's a good chance that changes at some point in the near future with Wisconsin, who they've faced within the first couple of weeks of the season, being a big showcase opportunity for him, obviously.
Well,
I'm not calling my words, and Wisconsin will hold him to like 50 yards passing or something like that.
No, he's going to be great. He's going to be great. I buy everything you're saying, Matt. He's going to be terrific in that game. Don't backtrack. He's going to be awesome. We all know about Florida, Utah. We talked about, Matt. You talked about the return of excitement of actual games. We get them this week in week one. What are a couple of under the radar matchups, maybe that not everyone is talking about, that you're looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I would say Duke Clemson is one. So Clemson, I think that the last couple of years have been, if I remember correctly, my memory sucks sometimes now that I'm 37 and over the hill. But if I remember correctly, the last 2 years were Clemson's first back-to-back 3-loss seasons in more than a decade, like going back to 2010, 2011. And they have a ton of ability heading into this year, that there's reason for optimism. But at the same time, Duke is a team that's kind of sneaky good, and one of the positions that obviously it's always nice to be very good at is quarterback. And when we talk about underrated players around the country or quarterbacks specifically that deserve more attention, Duke has one of the top guys that would fall in that category with Riley Leonard, who, when you look specifically at the NFL projection part of it, that is a kid who very, very much is on the radar for NFL scouts. So I think Clemson is like a 2-touchdown favorite or something like that heading into that game. But that's going to provide a nice gauge right away of Clemson, because Duke, I know, doesn't have the tradition from a football standpoint that the Clemson and some of the other teams around the ACC do. But they took a nice step forward last year under Mike Elko, had a hell of a year one. And they have that quarterback that can make some things interesting for them this year and make them even more of a threat against some teams that maybe you wouldn't typically expect Duke to be a threat against.
I'm eager to see Riley Leonard because I heard so much talk about Devin Leary at NC State last year. I bought into them, and then every big moment they crapped the bed. Like They, and I want to know if Leonard's that guy. If Leonard steps up in the big moments on the national stage Monday night, I'm sold. And it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. I want to see Duke go toe-to-toe with Clemson. If that happens, I'll buy into the hype of what people are saying about Riley Leonard. It'll be a fun game. Matt, looking forward to a fun season, man. Great thoughts and perspective here. We appreciate the time.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Matt Zenitz there, the On3 Sports senior national reporter. Great site there.
Nice spot also for Duke Clemson on Labor Day night with no other real competition.
Ryan Lee's calling that game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he'll be joining us.
He'll be on with us Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah. He'll be joining us Thursdays, and then he's got 2 games. He's got a game on Saturday, and he flies to Atlanta.
Really excited about that one. Excited a little bit about Penn State, West Virginia, one that we haven't talked a lot about also. That's a very important game for Neil Brown, who most West Virginia fans are shocked he's not already fired. Not only is he on the hot seat, no one knows why he still has a job with the new AD at West Virginia. Excited about that. And then I mentioned it earlier, but not really under the radar. It is a prime time, I think, ESPN game. UNC, South Carolina. On Saturday night from Charlotte should be really good.
See,
and he mentioned Joe Milton. I'm excited to see. I'll be at the game. Excited to see Joe Milton with a full offseason to prepare as the starting quarterback at Tennessee.
Yes. So you're saying you're not under the radar, sneaky game. It's not Michigan, East Carolina.
No.
Oh.
It didn't make my list.
Jim Harbaugh won't be coaching in that game.
Oh.
He's suspended for 3 games.
He's got some
reaction to that next. Plus, we've got some predictions for the Big Ten straight ahead. HotMic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. The bold taste of a Southern legend.
Chad, the Notre Dame-Navy game averaged 3.8 million viewers on NBC. Consider the score. The average was 3.8 million.
You know what that tells me, Hutton? There is a thirst. A thirst for football.
And the control and power of Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's big on that, too. Did you see Trey Wallace of OutKick posted it on X?
Well done.
It was, finally got it. The Notre Dame fans walking through the streets of Dublin, walking to the game before kickoff, it was awesome. I mean, a sea of people in Notre Dame colors. That could have just been Irish people, too, walking through in Ireland colors. But they were walking through the streets, and I mean, everything's, shut down in the street. And they're walking these old streets of Dublin, and it is an amazing sea of people heading to the game. That is the way we all felt, having not had football for so long. We've been in the desert. We were thirsty for it, and we got it on Saturday.
Feel the passion and pageantry.
And then it was 42-3.
It's time to tailgate and get to your game, too.
Then it was 42-3, and people, second half,
I don't know if it'll be
nap.
that score for Michigan and ECU or not. Well, maybe so. Who knows? But
Hutton, I actually took a 30-minute nap on Saturday. Very proud of myself. During the second half of Notre Dame-Navy, I could not believe how excited I was for that game to start. Because I didn't realize there was anything earlier, so I'm waiting around for 1:30. Had a softball game to coach at 8 a.m., so I was up at 6, went to the game, and then second half, you thought, you know what, my work here is done. I'm going to go lay down for 30 minutes, and I took a full-on 30-minute nap. Big for me.
Jim Harbaugh says he doesn't know what he's going to do during the game of these first three of the schedule where they face East Carolina, who's the second opponent, then Bowling Green.
UNLV.
UNLV, thank you. Those are the three that he'll miss. The Michigan making the decision to suspend Harbaugh 3 games for future penalty, or hoping that that's lessened down the road. Before he jumped into answering questions about the 3-game suspension, Harbaugh spent the opening, what was upwards of 6 minutes, we've got a portion of it here, trying to get his point across on name, image, likeness, and yes, he mentions revenue sharing. All right, we'll come back to that. So we don't have audio on the video currently. Chad, he is discussing revenue share and getting the fair share for players. He doesn't know why that it's not being mentioned more. He goes on to point out if it's all about, fair and everything's out on the table and you get your piece, you get their piece, he's like, the players I want to see the players get a piece of the pie considering all the money that's being made and all the money that's going to be pouring in on television contracts. That's how he opened his first presser of the season going into game week. And he spoke on it for nearly 5.5, 6 minutes. He's one of only a handful of people that are mentioning the phrase revenue sharing for the future. Not many are daring to mention that because they don't want revenue sharing. They want something that have a cap. They want a ceiling on where it is now. And if it can go lower, so be it. If the federal government wants to come up with a law that caps it, so be it. He's looking for more of the player reaction. and that's been the discussion that no one's really willing to have. At least he's behind a podium.
Well, it takes someone like him or Lane Kiffin that gives 0 Fs to go up there and say what they think.
Right.
Because most coaches, they want to coach ball, and they don't want to get involved with anything going on the business side and say things that are going to get them in trouble with their AD or their university, because the con in all this is that the schools and the leagues and the NCAA, they don't want the athletes to have the money. Why? Because that takes money from them. Then suddenly they don't have as much profit if they're having a revenue share, complete revenue share with student athletes. So they don't want that. Jim Harbaugh comes along, and he's secure enough. I don't think he would have cared even when he wasn't secure enough, when he wasn't beating Ohio State and his job was a little bit more in jeopardy. I don't think he would have cared then to say it. He certainly doesn't care now with all the success the program's had that he'll come right out and say what he believes. And what he believes is that the players should get a big piece of the pie, and there should be revenue sharing with all the money that's pouring in to college football. So good for him for stating his honest opinion and not just ducking a question or not saying something because he's afraid he's going to get in trouble with the NCAA or an administrator.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he was asked a question about it. I think he just opened with it.
He just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, good for him. He's willing to he will be willing to speak more on this, just not now.
Well, anything also that hurts the NCAA, he's going to want to speak out on.
Exactly.
That's a big part of that as well.
Just not now, because now he's going into this 3-game suspension. He's allowed to coach during the week. He just can't be there on game day. And he said, I'm kind of tired of this idea that it's a slap on the wrist that I'm suspended 3 games. He's pissed off about this. He does not want to be out of the 3 games. He went on to say, and I'm paraphrasing some of this, he hates missing games. He missed games in his career either because of a broken arm or a dislocated shoulder, but he compared missing the 3 games to start the season against ECU, UNLV, and Bowling Green as being taking a baseball bat to the kneecap, mafia style. It's like a mafia hit on Jim Harbaugh. Now, I think we know it is more of a slap on the wrist than it is a baseball bat to the knees. Baseball bat to the knees is what the NCAA is looking into with Arizona State, to the point where they're willing to just forego a bowl game that's possibly like the Sun Bowl or the Holiday Bowl, instead of allowing the new coach, along with the players that have bought in, to actually compete and try to win 6 games and go to a postseason game. In this case, even with the negotiation with the NCAA, it was a slap on the wrist, considering that they were negotiating with Harbaugh on what the penalty would be for just not cooperating, Chad. And here's Harbaugh saying, hey, I don't want to sit out any games. I shouldn't be suspended. And he continues to go on and say, I'd love to say more, but I'm not going to. Just like he did at Big 12 or Big 10 Media Days.
I just love the description of bat to the kneecaps. That's
a
good one
hit,
I want to use. Yeah, it's not a slap in the face, a bat to the kneecaps. And look, I mean, if you're a coach, it does feel that way. Like that's a big deal. Well, I mean, to us, we look at it on the outside and we say, these are 3 easy wins for Michigan.
Here's how you know,
anyone
Chad.
could coach those games and wins. But if you are the coach, 3, that's a fourth of your season.
He went on to say, hey, these 3 teams were playing combined for 19 wins a year ago. He's pointing that out. And then he would not say he's going to be watching the game. He said, I don't know where I'm going to be or what I'm going to be doing. He's like, my son, Jack, has a game later, I believe, during that day. I may go watch him play. He's standing there talking to the Michigan media saying, I may not even watch us play if I'm not going to be on the sideline coaching during the game. To be more to be determined with Harbaugh, because again, he sounds like a guy that's out after the season to me. Just tone, referencing different things, talking about revenue share. Well, you get that in the NFL, and the whole system with Michigan. He's not pleased with whatever Michigan's decided to do with the 3-game suspension. Chad, there will be some fan bases that like us and some who are not pleased with us based on these predictions. Big Ten, pleasant surprise. You want to start or me?
I'll start because mine is affected by some big news that just came down.
Okay.
I could have gone with an individual or a team here. I went with the team. My pleasant surprise is Nebraska. I think they're going to go 8-4. Jeff Sims, the transfer from Georgia Tech at quarterback, Really good playmaker, both with his arm and his legs. But news came down. One of the reasons I thought Nebraska could be good. Now, he was trying to get a waiver through the NCAA. They got a transfer from Eric Gilbert, 5-star tight end, to come in. Eric Gilbert, in the last 30 minutes, a story has dropped with a video of him armed robbery, burglary of a vape store in Lincoln, Nebraska of $1,800 worth. And there's a video of him breaking in. You can see it right here. The ring camera. I can't start it right now, but of him doing that. So that hurts the offense a bit. Yeah. But I'm going to stick with this for this reason. Nebraska was horrid against the
Nebraska
run
is back
a year ago. They're not back.
No, they've got this now. Now they've got controversy. They're back.
My brother-in-law in Nebraska actually said, "We're finally back." When he saw this, this is Tom Osborne era level Husker tomfoolery that we're dealing with right now. Pun on the word Tom too. But I think Nebraska got a chance to get 8-4. To them, that would be back. They've not had a winning season in 6 years. Whoa. 6 years since they've had a winning season. I think they can get to 8-4. To do that, it really needs to start at Minnesota Thursday night. But they could beat Minnesota, at Colorado, Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech, Northwestern, and Purdue at home, and win 2 of these 4. At Illinois, Maryland at home, at Michigan State, Iowa, who they just beat a year ago, at home. I think that's doable. I think combination of Jeff Sims, Malachi Coleman, a 5-star freshman receiver who's going to be a big contributor, they can get it done. Nebraska, not back, Hutton, but back to some level of respectability, and they're going to over-deliver expectations this year with Matt Rule.
Chad, my pleasant surprise is with Wisconsin. Luke Fickell takes over a 6-win program. Do not sleep on the Badgers here.
Brooke is very happy about that.
You've got Fickell coming in, excellent coach. Phil Longo at North Carolina, now the offensive coordinator. They bring in quarterback Mordecai from SMU. They are getting away from the run-heavy offense and more of the air raid approach. I think this is going to be a big hit in Wisconsin, and I think they start winning sooner rather than later. I think Wisconsin can be this year's version of LSU, where you think they need a year or so, and the new coach comes in, and they hit the ground running with transfers and with the right coaches calling the plays. I'm taking Wisconsin to be the pleasant surprise. And they can also be the big upset, turn some things upside down in the Big Ten overall, because I think everyone's penciled in as the best team just top to bottom. You've got Michigan, Ohio State, 1-2, and then Penn State's just automatically mentioned. I think Wisconsin becomes the team that we mention behind Michigan and Ohio State.
Shall we get to the disappointments now?
Yep.
Mel Tucker, huge disappointment.
It's
a year ago.
Good prediction.
He's 18-14 after 3 seasons. After that 11-2 year, he got signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract. That was after the 2021 season. That season looks like a mirage right now. He is a defensive coordinator by trade, and his defenses have ranged from mediocre to awful the last few years. He was 101st nationally a year ago in defense. Michigan State was, as a defense. They lose Peyton Thorne to Auburn. They lose their top receiver, Keon Coleman, to Florida State. They got some decent transfers in, but I think given this schedule, it's just going to be more disappointment for Michigan State and Mel Tucker. Is he in trouble? Absolutely not, because of that contract and the buyout. They just got to, sort of like Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, just got to hope, if you're a Spartans fan, that he figures it out and they get better. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think this team's going to be disappointing. I think it's going to be a close game Friday night against Central Michigan to start the season.
It should be.
This is not a very good Big Ten team, Michigan State. So it's going to be more disappointment for Mel Tucker.
Spread in that game is about the same as Duke and Clemson, for instance, to your point. Chad, my biggest disappointment is Kirk Ferentz at Iowa this season. It's because he wouldn't get rid of his son, who's calling plays, Brian. They took a pay cut to stay.
Nepotism.
Took a pay cut to stay, and they did away with that 2-year rolling contract. There are parameters here, which are not going to be met. The Hawkeyes offense, they have to average at least 25 points per game, and they have to win at least 7 games for Brian Ferentz to get back to his 2-year rolling contract. So instead of 3 yards in a cloud of dust and turn it over to the defense that'll get the ball back for you on a short field, I think they'll take more chances because they need to average 25 points per game. They're nowhere close to that. Take the under every single week with Iowa and take the under on wins and take the under on the whatever the odds might be at DraftKings Sportsbook, that Brian Ferentz and Kirk Ferentz, for that matter, are back in 2024 based on the decision to just roll it back again with the parameters listed here. 25 points per game. I mean, it's like they're turning into the Kansas City Chiefs all of a sudden. They're averaging 13. Tough to get 13.
Really
I know
bad.
they're not averaging that bad, but it was rough.
Hutton,
and they're not getting close to that.
They need to go from a program that has players betting the under on their own team to players betting the over.
Right.
On their own
team. They need players betting the under that aren't the kicker, because that's all they do is kick field goals. Right? Like, defense can bet the under.
It's bad.
That's betting on yourself in a good way. We're back at it tomorrow. Clay Travis will join us and much more. Hope you will. 3 o'clock Eastern is when we start. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.